Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the executive session meeting to order. Note that it's 5:27, and would ask for a motion to go into executive session, and we'll call the roll first, and then we'll take a motion to go into executive session. Let's call the roll, Pam.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with David Knight.
Present.
Thank you. Elise Hoddle. Elise, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry. I have to unmute two things. Yes, present.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond.
Here.
Bill Infante.
Here.
Thank you. Gary Tenenbaum. Ryan Slack. And Bill Kane.
Here.
Thank you. 5 are present.
All right, thank you. I would ask for a motion to enter executive session, and I think we have a suggested motion that's on the agenda. So if someone would up for that.
Mayor, I move that the town council enter executive session for a conference with our attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 24-6-4024B, more specifically to discuss case number 2016 CV 30322, Theodore Guy versus Town of Basalt.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Discussion? We'll have to have a roll call vote. So, Pam?
Okay. All right. Bill Infante.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
Yes.
Bill Kane.
It sounds like Ryan is on also now. Ryan Slack. I think he
okay.
just joined.
Bill Kane for the motion.
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Tenenbaum is absent. Ryan Slack.
May have to mute. We're getting some weird feedback.
Ryan Slack, we're getting really bad feedback from your phone.
Okay.
Okay. I assume he'll be back on shortly.
Okay. Well, I would like to turn this over to Jeff and Ryan for discussion on our outstanding litigation. But you need a couple of minutes here.
We need a couple of minutes to shut down the equipment in the council room.
Okay.
So we'll do that and we'll be off. Jeff, is there anything you need to say before we shut down?
No, the motion to go into executive session is made, and once we're on, it's just us here, I'll do my normal announcements. And then,
okay.
And then how do we, is there a function to then stop the recording of this, or is that kind of where we're at now?
You will have to call James or I.
Okay.
Do you have my cell number?
I do, yeah.
Okay, that's probably the best way.
So, yeah, just let me know when it's shut down in the council room, and then I'll do my announcement, and then I'll
come, okay.
tell you to
Okay, I'll let you know. I'll call you. Thank you. Okay, Bill, I think we're ready whenever.
Okay, thank you. I would like to call to order the June 23rd meeting of the Basalt Town Council. We should begin. Do we need to call the roll for the regular meeting as well?
I would. Yeah.
Yes, please start with the roll call.
Okay, let's start with Glenn Drummond,
Here.
Gary Tenenbaum, Bill Kane,
Yeah, here.
Bill Infante,
Here?
David Knight,
Here.
Elise Hoddle,
Present?
and Ryan Slack.
Here.
Gary Tenenbaum's not here. I think Ryan's trying to get on. Let me email him the invitation here. Real quick. To Mahoney. There we go. And
Okay.
I think Ryan Mahoney is going to join us here momentarily.
Okay. So I will just keep us moving here. A note for council, we have a very ambitious agenda tonight. So if I seem brusque at times, it's not because I have any personal animus here. I'm trying to get us through what appears to be a pretty formidable list of stuff. So I'm going to begin with asking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our June 9th Town Council meeting.
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second? All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we will open the floor to mayor and council comments, reports. Anyone just take over? Let us know. We won't go in any particular order. Just whoever would like to comment, please do so.
Public comment first.
Sure. Is there I'm sorry, I keep blowing past public comments. Sorry. So let's back up here and ask for a call to public. Susan Philp is going to manage the phone to take calls from the public. For any of those that are viewing, please keep in mind that you must limit your comments to 3 minutes, direct them directly to the mayor. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive. We'll be the judge of that. Town council will make no decision or take action except to direct the town manager. So the mic is open, the phones are open for public comment.
Okay, I did receive one request for public comment, and I will be placing that soon, but if you want to make a public comment, please email planning@basalt.net or text 970-987-7010 with your name and phone number. So we did receive one request from Tony Kronberg. I'll place her call now.
Okay.
Excuse me, point of order. Susan, isn't that on the agenda, so she would talk at that time?
No, it's clarified that it's not a public hearing, so if she wanted to comment, she should comment during this time.
Thank you.
Let me try that again, sorry.
Hi, you reached Tony Kronberg and Water Baby Swimming. Please leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as I can. Thanks and have a great day.
The mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time. Goodbye.
Let me just check my emails and see if anybody else texted while I was doing that. Did Jerry call?
Brian was wondering if Jerry wanted to comment.
Okay, I'll call him too.
Hi, this is Tony speaking.
Hi, Tony. It's James from the town of Basalt. You're in the town council meeting at public comment.
Great. Is it that time right now?
It is, yes.
Oh, I don't see you up on the grassroots TV screen. So I apologize. So I can't see anyone's faces, but I wanted to say good evening to everyone. And that very quickly, that I wanted to, of course, I'm going to be talking about the swimming pool. And I'd like to, again, thank Brian Pacenti, who's the pool manager, for getting the pool in compliance with COVID so that we can all swim. But really specifically, I wanted to highlight Rob Larson, who has been your maintenance man there for years. That water is so crystal clear. It has diamonds in it, and it's warm. And I just wanted thanks to both of them. And then I've been swimming at the Basalt pool for 25 years. And on April 24th, 2018, just about 2 years ago, I went before the town council about getting either a hot tub or warm water, a family pool to replace the kiddie pool. And then in 2019, the pool consultants were hired. And then 2020 is where we are right now. I've got some concerns about where we are right now in this process. And I want to get into the legalese stuff of it. I sent to you an email that talks about my concerns about certain terms of the contract with the pool consultant have not been fulfilled. I'm very big on public input, public comment, as I'm sure all of you are aware. And one of the things that it was approved by the former council and the resolution and the agreement with the pool consultants is that the public was going to be provided with two options for the kiddie pool area, and that there would be a charrette, and that people would be able to give their input, and that has not happened. That's my whole objective tonight, is to have that public process honored that was in the agreement. Then also, in the resolution that is for tonight, there's no public comment being taken, but in the resolution, it says that based on the evidence, testimony, exhibits, and comments from the public and town staff, that the council would hereby approve the construction documents, but that's not happening tonight, so I can't see how that clause can remain in there because there is no public comment being taken. The next thing is that I know that we've done a survey, but the survey was done in a matter of 6 days. And then the consultants had like 4 or 5 hours to analyze the results of that and then present it to the post committee, who then, the post committee, there's some issues with the sunshine law. So, and I will send in some of my points, but my main concern tonight is I just would like to be able to have two options presented to the public. And the post committee does not want to take public comment. They've made that very clear in the last two meetings. And once we get the recordings, if you'd like to hear their comments, you're more than welcome to. And then...
Tony, you have 1 minute, so keep, try to wind it up here.
Well, so, and the other thing, just so you know for the survey, thank you so much, is that tonight what's happening is someone's building a house, and tonight you're being asked to approve the kitchen. And then after the kitchen's approved, then you're going to go ahead and add the living room, the front porch, and the driveway. And as council picked up very astutely during your work session, which again, no public comment was taken, but during that work session, most of you felt it should all be done at one time. And I totally agree, because you don't build a house one room at a time. You do the site-specific plan and then do the whole thing. So again, I'm asking council, and again, I appreciate everybody's efforts. This is the quickest lobby effort I've ever done. Aspen Rec was 20 years, and now we're on 40 years. Snowmass Rec was 10 years, and this has only been 2 years.
You've exceeded your 3 minutes, Tony. So we're going to take this up later on in the evening, and I'm sure we will consider getting this back to post for more public comment if we think that's essential. So thank you for your comments.
No, thank you all so much. And again, I can't wait to see you over the pool, because I think it's the best pool anywhere.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then,
Susan, any
yeah,
additional public comment?
Jerry Twilliger,
Okay.
Hello.
Hey, Jerry, this is Susan, and I have you on Grassroots. This is the Basalt Town Council meeting, and we're in the public comment. And from your email last night, both Ryan and I were taking that you wanted to make some public comment.
Oh, yes, thank you for calling me. And I just had a few questions. And sorry, I don't mean to mention this, but I'm eating supper, so I'm sorry for you guys. Phasing. What is the order of the phasing in this pool was my first question. I mean, what goes first and what goes last? You have a phase idea. What is phase one?
Are you talking about the swimming?
Jerry,
Yeah, go ahead, Susan.
We'll present that at, when we talk about the resolution, which is item 8E, so we'll make that presentation then.
Oh, so I can't comment on it because I don't know what it is what you're saying. Okay. That's the problem I had with this, is there was very little information in this, so we don't know what is really, in fact, not even quite sure what is really going to be done, and especially what the phasing is.
Jerry, do you want to hang on, come back and comment when we get to that item on the agenda?
That's 8:15 or approximately.
This is the first for the council to see the recommended 2020 work program. So we'd be, we're seeing it for the first time tonight also. So I think we'd be happy to hear any comments you have at that time.
Okay, well, let me make a couple more. My first phase, preferably, would be the photovoltaics. And I've looked at the mechanical quite a bit. I don't know if that's included in the first phase, but if it is, it needs a little bit of refining. And the green team doesn't quite know what's going to happen either. The engineer hired to go through this used very good engineering principles. We were very lucky in that the pool people who maintain the pool had some real data, so the amount of green or the amount of energy needed was half of what the engineers thought. And I actually submitted a drawing for the engineering, but I haven't heard back on that. I also would include expanding the thermal solar, although I don't believe that's a recommendation at this point. And then just to throw a wrench at it, the hot tub is, to me, it's a lot of extra work. For the pool people, it's a disease spreader, and it's an energy consumer. So that's one of the things I'm totally against.
Okay, let me just give you something to munch on. So if you want to come back and join us later in the evening, and this is unusual for Interact at public comment, but this is a unique circumstance. The 2020 program is men's and women's locker room renovations, new photovoltaic panels to go on the changing room roof. We're going to purchase the shades. Mechanical room upgrades will be made. If new efficient boiler, that's obviously in the fall. Pool code compliance safety upgrades and the new water line. So, any rate, the PV program is 2020. It's a summer deal, and I think we really appreciate the effort and TLC that the Green Team has put into this, because I think we have one of the more environmentally sort of responsive pools anywhere in Western Colorado. Thanks.
Okay, well, I will observe it. I don't need to comment further. This sounds pretty good, Bill.
Okay.
And so And those are my comments, and we'll see what the mechanical refinements finally end up being.
Yeah, and we'll circle back about the solar hot water. I mean, that sounds like a really, sensible recommendation. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. See you in a couple of weeks. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Okay, I don't
Susan?
have any other, comments at planning@basalt.net, and I'm assuming that none came over to Brian either. So I think we're ready to move on to council comments.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So at this point in the agenda, the floor is open for council comments. So please speak up. I'll kick it off if everybody's organizing their thoughts. One is I would like to thank the staff and acknowledge the town for, incredibly nice support for our Sunday market yesterday. The energy was great. The vendors were in pretty good spirits, I would say. I think the new sighting plan out into the park really works well. I just got a lot of positive feedback, and people really appreciated having the thing kicked off. Obviously, we need more produce. So that was great. Friday night, the drive-in, the Rolling Stone, for those of us that were lucky enough to get in the window and get to see Havana Moon and the Stones out of the drive-in theater was, I think, a crazy success. It was really neat. Not a lot of social interaction, but it was really a pretty fun event. We have the Takaw groundbreaking will take place this week. It's not going to be a big people event. They're really very concerned about group size and COVID protection. So we just make note, I think Friday they're going to put a shovel in the ground and start the contemporary, which is going to be a great addition to the community. So all good, and don't know about everybody else, but I've gotten a lot of good feedback on Basalt Bucks. So they're my comments. Anyone else? Going, gone. We're going to go to the manager's report.
Ryan, you're up.
Okay, I'll be there. Hold on.
He just needs 1 second. He's running back to his office.
Okay.
I think we're having technical
Okay,
difficulties.
while we're at it, we're undertaking a block painting program. I sent a photo around everybody, the first sample at Brick Pony, and so, actually Brick Pony may end up being not maybe an appropriate name for what's going on over there. So, we've got some great examples around the state. The town of Buena Vista also used river pigs to protect their expanded consumption areas, and they've got a community painting program. So I think we've got some great options there that'll be fun to pursue.
All right, Bill, I think I'm ready. Thank you for holding off. Just for those that are watching, apparently I got a text message that Grassroots was not streaming on the website, but I think it is. I think you just have to go under the government meetings tab, and you can find it there. So for those in the public that maybe are able to see it on TV but wanting to stream it or not able to get to it quite yet, it is up. So just a couple brief items. So the Basalt Bucks, I did get confirmation today from one person that it had hit their mailbox. So people should start getting those. As of Friday, I did not check today, but we had 32 businesses as of Friday. I don't know if we have an update on that, but I'm sure we could grab one. Tomorrow night, I just want to encourage the community to come out. We'll have our first Buster's event, both in Willits Town Center and in downtown Basalt. So that should be 2 to 3 acts every Wednesday between now and August 19th is the last, I believe. And then additional parking. So tomorrow night, if we get a lot of people coming out, we've worked with the school district, and they were kind enough to let us use the elementary school parking lot. And we're going to be doing some work just to do improvement on the trail that goes to the swinging bridge. So it's about a 3-minute walk, and we'd love to have people park over there. We do have solar lights that we'll be putting out, and so you know, there should be plenty of light in case you're out after dark. So excited about that as well. And let's see. Oh, and then with regard to budget updates, so we had told you at the last meeting that we were looking to add about $600,000 back into the budget after we had anticipated having to cut about $1.155 million. What we landed on was about 672. And so that won't all get spent overnight, but we'll start making plans in that regard, and we will come back to council in July when we have those updated sales tax numbers from May, and we'll just keep talking about it and kind of keep tracking how we are doing. I will say we've been able to get numbers back from some of our resort communities, and the ones that specifically have ski areas in them that really depend on that tourist traffic were definitely hit a lot harder than us. It ranged anywhere from 20 to 50% down on their sales tax, and you know, we were down about 5%. So so we're faring, you know, pretty well, and it's sort of an indicator that we're not you know, completely tied to that tourist market. So we'll keep tracking that and getting you as much information as we can. And then some of you may have seen, initially it came as a surprise to us with them landing down on Two Rivers Road, but we got it sorted out, and there's an undergrounding project that's underway, taking out a big pole that crosses Two Rivers Road. So that should be done here imminently, and they'll move out and traffic can flow without issue. And many of you probably noticed we're just about done. A couple very minor things that you may or may not notice, but the streets enhancement project for the summer went very well, and I think the contractor was in and out pretty darn quickly. And the last thing we'll have to do is the striping, so you'll see some of that. But other than that, I'll leave it there, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Ryan before we move on? Thank you very much. We're going to move on to our 620 item. This is a presentation of the 2019 audit. So Christy, I would imagine, is going to be managing this one for us. Christy and Ryan, the floor is yours.
Christy, you're muted.
Still muted.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm just really happy to have with us tonight Paul Bacchus. Simon Dogby's also going to be here in just a minute, and he's going to help us with this from the Finance Advisory Board side. But just a note on the audit itself is that this is our first time that we're going to actually try to go for the CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So it was a lot of additional work for myself and for my team, Jenny Aragon, you know, and all the department heads in helping with that statistical information, and also for the auditors and helping to put all that together too. So a big thank you for that. But I'm going to hand over the floor to Paul, and Paul can start to talk about the audit, and if you have a problem with sharing your screen or anything, I have it up too.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Bacchus. I'm a CPA. I'm actually in Avon, Colorado, and I'm with a firm called McMahon Associates. And we're a bit of a unique firm. All we do is financial statement audits, no tax work. And actually, this is my second of 3 city council audit presentations tonight.
Wow.
I just finished Avon and I have Carbondale next. So I'm pleased to be here to present the 2019 audit. Just kind of really quick, I know that you guys have a busy agenda. This year was obviously a little different with the COVID, but generally your finance team uploaded all the data to our software, and then we pull it in and we do a bunch of different procedures on it. Things like looking at the bank reconciliations, confirming the balances, looking at capital assets, looking at insurance, looking at expenses. Are they paid timely? Are they coded correctly? Payroll policies, COP and debt obligations, making sure we've complied with all that. And when I look, we actually scanned in for the town of Basalt this last year. Looks like about 420 different documents. And so that's the work that goes into the audited financial statements. Municipalities have 2 types of audits. There's general purpose financial statements, which Christy mentioned, and then there's CAFRs. And a CAFR has additional information in it. It's quite a bit more comprehensive. And this is the first year Basalt has gone for a CAFR, and then assuming you guys approve it, we will submit it to the Government Finance Officers Association, and they'll do a further review. And if it looks good and it meets their requirements, you'll get what's called a Certificate of Financial Achievement Award. And if you don't, then we'll fix whatever their issue was and keep working on getting that award. So the report is, terribly lengthy, and that's because it meets a bunch of different needs. It's not only for you as council, but it's going to go to all your bond holders and COP holders, your lease holders, your banks, insurance company, Colorado State Auditor. This year you also had a single audit, and the single audit goes to the federal government as a condition of receiving federal money. And so that makes it even longer. But really what I'm going to do is kind of just walk through a couple main items. And I'll just refer to the page number on the bottom if there are any questions. Section A is a independent auditor's report. That's our opinion. The financial statements are yours. The opinion is ours. And it would be referred to as an unmodified opinion. It means you can rely on these financial statements. They're materially correct to make financial decisions about the town. Probably the main thing that I think council would find of interest is on page C5. And page C5 has a general fund, a conservation trust fund, which is Colorado lottery money, and a debt service fund. And Basalt is actually a little different than a lot of, we audit probably 30 municipalities and, 15, 20% of the counties in the state. And Basalt is really different in the fact that you have a lot of restricted money in your general fund. So there's a couple things that become a little more important. If you look at C5, you'll see there's the general fund. So money comes in, and think of this just like deposits in the bank. So you'll see revenues in the general fund. That first column was $13,221,000. Expenditures go out, $10,415,000. We have some transfers in, transfers out. We had bond issuance. So you take the revenues minus the expenses, minus those other items, and you get that where it says excess deficiency of revenues over other financing sources and expenditures and other financing uses, which is a long windy way to say net income or net loss. So that is essentially how much you added to your general fund bank accounts. It's not exactly cash, it's cash plus some deposits for the next 60 days, less what you owed at year end. So great year, we added 7.1 million to our fund balances. There's a number of reasons why that is. You know, you can see the sale of asset, bond proceeds, lease proceeds are kind of the big factors. And there's a description of those transactions on B1 if you're interested. But you add that 7.1 million that we added to our fund balances to where we started, which was 5.2 million, and you end up with 12.3 million as your ending fund balance. Normally, most municipalities, you can just take that 12.3 million, divide it into the 10 million in expenditures and kind of come up with a percentage. But as I mentioned, Basalt has a significant amount of restricted funds that can't be used for general operations. So if you actually scroll back one page to page C3, you will see there's that $12 million at the bottom of the page again, 12.3 million in fund balance. And 6.1 million of it is restricted for a variety of reasons, and there's details in the financial statements about what makes that up. But really your ending fund balance is that 5.8 million. So I guess I'm not sure how deep you want me to go down the rabbit hole, but you know, last year you do have a fund balance minimum requirement as a percentage of expenditures of that unassigned number. And Christy, refresh my memory, what percentage was it?
33%.
Yeah, 33%. So last year you did not meet that. This year you do meet that fund balance minimum percentage. So overall, I think things until COVID were trending in the right way. I know Ryan had mentioned some of the, you know, other cast members like Aspen and Vale and Winter Park are our clients too. And those really hardcore tourism dollars, they're seeing a very significant impact. It seems like municipalities that have a kind of more of a permanent population are not seeing quite as big a sales tax impact. So hopefully Basalt falls into that later category.
Hey, Paul, can I stop 1 second based upon looking at this increase in change in fund balances? It was a lot of the work that we did last year, as Paul said, in those other financing sources and uses and the sale of the affordable housing units and repaying the line of credit for that, looking at repaying the Tabor refund debt through the issuance of certificates of participation. Really was intentional to try to help with our fund balance and to try to get rid of that debt, to help, you know, at the time council was talking about making sure we were preparing for a recession. We never would have anticipated it was because of the virus, but here we are, and that was the biggest reason of the why, because you don't just get a $7.1 million increase in fund balance. That doesn't happen in a small town without some real dedicated work to make that happen. The other thing is that there was over $2 million in increase in restricted fund balance because of deferred projects such as just right across the street, that development, and some post expenses that are still deferred. So just things like that, but a very small amount of that was from operations because we also had a favorable economy last year. But just to give you a little background on that as well.
Yeah, and Christy, why don't you scroll up to B1 just so you can actually see there's 5 kind of bullet points that Christy and her team pointed out in the financial statements.
Which page was that again?
B1, the first page of the MD&A.
Okay.
And I recognize there's a lot of information in here, but that's because it's intended for a lot of people. But you'll see those 5 bullet points kind of detail why you had such a large increase in fund balance this year. And as Christy mentioned, they were all kind of intentional items. There is a lot of additional information in there, and I'm happy to go through more of it, but I also recognize kind of the limited format that this has. There also is a letter that I need to cover, included in your packet, and I'd be happy to go through that too, or answer questions on the financial statements.
Paul, I think that, audits are amazing things. I mean, the highest, your highest aspiration is to get a letter that says no comment. So it's a weird world. So can you just, in a nutshell, for a lay person, tell us how we did? I mean, are we sort of, there are no significant irregularities, so you would say this is a clean audit?
Sure. So I kind of try and divide these into two things, and the first is kind of the financial results. So financial results seem to be following at least through 2019, kind of your plan. And the second is kind of how do things look from internal control and accounting standpoint. And that's this letter. So if you kind of scroll to the top of the letter, Christy, you'll see there are certain things that we as auditors have to report to you. And so the first is, it talks about qualitative aspects of accounting policies, which in English means what are the biggest estimates in the financial statements. Sometimes we have to make big estimates, an environmental liability or a legal contingency, something like that. You guys really don't have anything unusual. It's Colorado's Fire and Pension Police Association. How much have they promised their members, which you guys are a member of, but you don't really have any control over that. How long do your assets last? You follow standard useful lives, so there's not really anything I would recommend changing there. And the last is, are you going to collect all your accounts receivable? Historically you have, so there's not really any concerns there. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. I really have to commend your finance team. We audit a lot of governments, and virtually all of them have extended their audits with the Colorado State Auditor this year. Your team uploaded their data, answered all their questions. We worked with them on Microsoft Teams, where we could just basically chat, look at each other's screens, kind of go through as good as we could do in kind of the COVID environment. And ultimately, as I mentioned, we have 400 documents that back this up. So there really weren't any difficulties considering COVID, and that is unusual this year. I say that auditors don't really say anything nice, so that's about all you're gonna really get out of me on that. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, that's, I think, the most important thing that I would bring to you tonight. That's in English, did we have journal entries? So a lot of times clients will upload their data, we set out verifying it, we have a lot of changes. The opinion still would be unmodified on the financial statements because the numbers are correct, but it's totally different than where you started. That's not the case. The information council's getting is accurate because we've gone through and we've verified all the numbers in the financial statements, and we did not have any journal entries. So that's, I think, critical. That's where you want your clients to be. Unfortunately, that's not where a lot of them are. Disagreements with management, that would be somewhat unusual, but if you disagreed with how we presented something, we would detail that. Just FYI, Christy and her team does sign a management representation letter indicating that they've responded to us honestly and provided us all the detail. And so the only thing that I would bring to you tonight would be just an FYI that there is a new accounting standard coming up that impacts leases, and we'll work with Christy to get that implemented for next year's financial statements. It can be a lot of work. It tends to be more work for counties than and maybe school districts than municipalities, but that's just an FYI of an upcoming change. Overall, things looked really good. We got everything we needed, everything was reconciled, numbers were accurate, and I think you'll see a secondary review by GFOA, and I'm pretty certain you're going to get positive results back on that. So,
great. Questions from council of Paul or Christy about our audit? It's a big document for sure.
I think Glenn has a question.
I'd just like to say nice job. I mean, you guys put together a hell of a package. It looks really good. It's definitely, you can decipher it. It makes sense. This is good.
Thank you. We're really hopeful that statistical data is really going to help our community and the council members to make really good decisions. Like, there's now information in the back that will help you to determine if you're taking it over a section of road, how much that could cost you per year. So,
you guys did great.
thank you.
Yeah, you really did. Thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
So
One thing for council I might just add is this submission to GFOA was a goal on the strategic plan. So that'll check another box on this year's 2020 work plan. And I would just echo what Glenn said on Christie's hard work on this. I watched it in action, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. And yeah, congrats on submitting for the CAFR too. That would be a feather in everyone's cap if that came through. So best of luck with that. So if there are no further questions, I would suggest a motion. I think the only action that we take is we just accept the audit.
Mayor, I move that town council accept the 2019 audit.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. I think we can do this with a voice vote, Pam, unless I'm mistaken. So I would just say, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Thank you, guys. Excellent work. And I know this is a major step in moving forward with this strategic plan. I know the previous council was working hard on getting more transparency and better financial reporting. So this is a big step in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. We'll get it filed with all the parties that need it. And then I was just going to hang on through the investment policy because that was one of our recommendations last year too. So thank you.
Good deal. Appreciate you doing that. Yeah, we'll see. There may be an ancillary question about whether this boosts our bond rating. If our debt rating may improve as a result of this audit. So the next item up is resolution number 21, series of 2020. It's a resolution of the Town Council of Town of Basalt adopting an amended investment policy. So Christy and Simon Dogby of our Financial Advisory Board are going to address the council. So
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. So I just wanted to just kind of start the conversation by the why of why this is coming back up at this point in time. We just approved the investment policy the last time by a 4-3 vote at council, and it was staff's belief based upon council's questions and some need for clarification, and then also comments received after the meeting and concerns that there was a need for further clarity in the policy to address those concerns and questions, and otherwise we wouldn't have brought this up again. We would have moved forward with that, but staff believes that the investment policy is critical enough to what we do to need all of the clarity that we can, and financial transparency and accountability to the public and to town council. So that's staff's reason for that, and we brought that back to the Finance Advisory Board as well with the comments and conversation from the last town council meeting, and Finance Advisory Board agreed to the changes that you see in this Resolution 21. And they, you know, they thought that those things would hopefully answer those questions and alleviate concerns, so.
Okay, before we move, I just want to clear the air about procedurally, what we're doing. Initially, it was my impression that we had to actually readdress the investment policy by having a motion to reconsider. I'd like Jeff's comments for the record about what the procedure is here, and make sure that that we're proceeding properly with amendments, since we adopted by resolution the an amended finance investment policy at the last meeting. So I don't know, Jeff, can you comment on procedurally what we're doing here, and whether this is the legally correct route?
Sure. So the town's investment policy is an administrative policy. It was approved by resolution and took immediate effect. The town council has the ability to amend that policy at any time. And one way that it could be amended or brought back for review by council through a procedural mechanism is through a motion to reconsider, but that's not the exclusive way to do it. Here it's being presented as a repeal and replacement of the existing policy, just by presenting it as a new matter for consideration on the town council agenda. You know, as Christy said, based on the policy that was approved with amendments and some of the questions and concerns that arose, it was proving to be, I think, exceedingly difficult to actually implement. And so the town council, the staff is bringing it, wanted to bring back those concerns to town council, and for the sake of efficiency and expediency to try to get this policy on the books, is just bringing back a new revised policy, and the resolution would basically just repeal and replace the prior policy. And so the way staff is presented to this, and it's given the concerns that existed, and the way it's been presented on the agenda is appropriate in my view.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll ask, I guess, Christy at this point to outline for us, maybe with Simon, about amendments that you would suggest. I think, you know, we had two measures that the council had suggested. One was trying to tack away from gas and oil and gas investments, yet try to stay intact with the Colorado Trust. And then secondly, there was a concern about investing in certificates of participation. So you may want to address those and others, and then kind of let us know where you are and what direction you're looking for here. So let me hand it back to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. And I also wanted to note too that Simon, on our Finance Advisory Board, we're really fortunate to have so many talented people on our Finance Advisory Board. Simon is our investment advisor guru on the Finance Advisory Board, and he helps us with a lot of investments because he does this for a living. Just to give you some background about Simon, we're just really glad to have him here. So thank you for that, Simon, being here.
Thank you.
You bet. So Simon, I'll go through a couple things. Feel free to jump in as you see fit from Finance Advisory Board's perspective, and we'll go from there. Okay. So I tried to first of all explain in the cover letter how we were addressing some of the questions and concerns and comments of council from the prior meeting, and I'm not going to go through all of that. You know, I'm sure everybody's read it, but I'll go through the policy itself and show you guys the changes that we've made, and then just go more for specific questions, because I have a master's in finance. I could talk about investment policies all day, and I don't think that everybody else is really wanting to do that. So I'll let you guys read all that information, and then if there's additional need for information, then you guys can feel free to ask me those questions to make sure that we're getting this right. Okay. So the first, I'm just going to go down. We've made sure that everything that was changed was stricken out or was red. It was put either red or green. Now this collateralization note was just moved to the bottom of the legal investments category. So it's not, it didn't change the policy at all. It was just a suggestion from Bruce Kimmel as he reviewed it. So we've had a lot of people review this policy to make sure we've got it all down. The first thing I'm going to note, as far as how we handled the oil and gas situation, this is the conundrum with it, is that we did a lot of research. I did a lot of research on Colotrust and on our investment pools that are government specific. There's really two large investment pools within Colorado that meet the Colorado revised statutes for 4 towns to invest in, and one is with Colotrust and one is with CSAFE. And so unfortunately it's a lot different than personal investments that have a heck of a lot more socially conscious kind of investment strategy approaches in the actual portfolios that they include. Unfortunately, with Colotrust, there's $1.5 billion with a B in assets over 1,500 different municipal governments. Eagle County is a part of Colotrust, and Garfield County, as are many of the municipalities in the area. Colotrust, they have what's called a Colo Prime option and a Colo Plus option. And the Colo Prime is really your government-backed security. So obviously there's no oil and gas in those at all. Just there's U.S.-backed government treasuries and things like that. There's also a Colotrust Plus, and the Colotrust Plus is more of your commercial paper options and those kind of things that do invest in lots of different AAA-rated papers in accordance with the Colorado revised statute requirements. So with that, they currently, I did talk with them, and they said they do not currently have any oil and gas investments in their portfolio. However, that isn't their main strategy or focus in this portfolio, is to exclude oil and gas. So we couldn't say for certainty that the pools would at every time, not have oil and gas in them. So because of that situation, we said discourages, the town of Basalt discourages investments in oil and gas companies due to the impact of oil and gas to the environment. Obviously, we wouldn't be investing in anything like that directly. This would be more due to the indirect nature of these pools and money markets that we could invest in. It's why we did that way, which is one thing that council can weigh in on. There was the other concern that Mayor Kane had mentioned about the certificates of participation here of the town of Basalt, or lease purchase or obligations of the town of Basalt. The town of Basalt is a AA rated, I think it's a AA minus currently from the 2013 municipal bonds. And we're a pretty solid organization. I mean, one great example of that is just look at the impacts of sales tax that took a hit pretty hard in other organizations that were down 5-6% on that in 1 month. So we're pretty steady, and we've done a lot of great things on our financial information or financials, and retooling all of that and all of our debt and how we handle that to make sure that we're in very good financial order, regardless of any of those things. Is that we struck this part from our policy because we only, send any obligations out there, incur debt maybe once a decade, maybe a little bit more often than that, but I couldn't perceive that that would be a big deal to us to really want to invest in our portfolio at any point in time. And the other part of that is any interest in any local government investment pool is included. So if there was, an indirect interest in the town's funds, then that wouldn't be against our policy. So after that research, I just wanted to bring that back to let you guys know. Finance Advisory Board was fine with that approach as well. The other thing, as we were looking through this, it's always good to look through things one more time. There's mention in here about bank debt being allowable in P here, U.S. dollar denominated corporate or bank debt. But there is some question of whether or not time deposits are included in that, certificates of deposit. So we wanted to make sure of that by making sure to spell that out specifically, which is the reason why we added that. Finance Advisory Board liked that, just to make sure that there's further clarity in the policy. Collateralization is only really related to the bank debt, and I believe that has a lot to do with the prior financial crisis from 2008. And just for further information on the collateralization, there's a act in the state of Colorado that Public Deposit Protection Act, PDPA, that when banks are considered PDPA compliant, that they have to do this collateralization. So what you're saying in here is that you're using banks that are PDPA compliant. Alpine Bank is PDPA compliant, and we have that conversation with them regularly on that. So, you know, just as far, they even go above and beyond that. So sometimes it even discourages banks from giving us an interest rate, like Alpine's now at 0%. So we try to minimize our investment in that just because they have to collateralize it. So they really don't make the money they otherwise could. You know, a couple other just really quick points we didn't make changes to, but the intention of the policy is number one, is fiscal transparency and accountability from the town's finances, is making sure that the investments are squarely put in by this policy in council's hands. As far as you guys are telling me what I can and cannot invest in. Any amendments to the policy are required to be approved by town council. So that means that there's, you know, that you guys know exactly at any given point what I can and cannot invest in. We are going to report quarterly as part of the quarterly financial report in the investment holdings of the town, and including the interest earned on the investment, so that there is additional clarity and fiscal accountability around our investments that we haven't had before. And I'm happy to do that. It's not going to be a big ask. It'll be, you know, 5-10 minutes of time to put that on our quarterly financials. Simon, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key here is that we want the town to grow, but we don't want to handcuff ourselves. And by the amendments that have just been made now, it allows us, I mean, it's not as simple as going in and picking between options A and B all the time. These things are so pooled that you can't take out a couple of percent here and there because we don't want to be invested in oil and gas or something else doesn't meet our criteria. So I like the new wording of the proposal. In sets clear guidelines that we can follow. And if we're not able to do that, then Christy will do a good job of coming back and saying why we're not able to do that. But to just blanket say, yes, do this, no, do that, is a little bit too handcuffy for my liking. And I like the way it reads as well. It's pretty easy to read. We all know the main goals of this, as it says on page, I think one of the first few pages. I mean, safety is number one, liquidity and return. And this allows that to happen.
Thanks, Simon. Okay, that's all we have. We can go for council questions or whatever you would like, Mayor Kane.
Sure, thank you. Any questions of council for Christy or Simon?
I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, Christy, thank you so much for all the hard work that you do. The audit is amazing, and cleaning up our mess of finances and returning Tabor and all of that good stuff. I just want to give you a shout out because I know you do a lot of good work. And I also want to say thank you for doing research on the oil and gas. That was my request. I guess what I don't understand is, and this is just my ignorance as a new council member, are we not allowed to invest in anything other than the College Trust or the CSAFE?
I mean, that's not a true statement. We can invest in our own commercial paper. We can invest as long as it's AAA rated, and it follows the Colorado Revised Statute Guidelines. We currently have $15.6 million in our College Trust account right now, and so we can go to an individual investment approach where I do CDs and bank notes and all that kind of stuff. But it becomes really challenging with a staff of two to manage all of that. And so the best option, in my opinion, based upon a staff of, like the time for your staff and being effective and efficient, and also as far as the cost of College Trust is 12 basis points. That means 0.12% is what we pay off of our investments for their, for all of their services they offer, and they do all that investing for us for a similar rate of return that I would be able to get. And the other thing that's really great about those tools is the diversification. I'm sure Simon could talk a lot about diversification and the importance of that in investing, even in very safe investments. It's really great to diversify. So.
Yeah, just
So-
a few moments. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry,
I bet you're going to ask the same question I was going to ask Bill, so go ahead.
No. I defer. Go for it.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, can we invest in like a Fidelity type of, I mean, that's just the one that I'm familiar with. Okay,
Yeah.
so because of being a municipality, there's certain limitations to where we can invest.
Correct. Yep, that's correct. And if there was I don't know all the Fidelity account, like mutual funds and the specifics around that, but the only one I would imagine if they had it that we would probably be able to invest in is the government-backed securities one. We couldn't invest in the socially confident, or socially conscious Fidelity because a lot of times that's stocks, and we are not allowed to invest in stocks specifically, and those portfolios don't have that the same requirements as that would the investment pools meet to make sure we're following the law.
Okay, and one final question. I'm just curious, when you were doing the research, I know you mentioned that Eagle County and Garfield County are invested in College Trust, but I'm just curious if you talked to any other environmentally conscious cities and asked what they're invested in, like the city of Boulder or the city of Aspen. I know that we're not the only one that would love to divest from oil and gas. I'm just curious if you talked to any other municipalities.
I apologize. I did not ask any particular municipal governments, but I do know the city of Boulder, they do not invest in the government pools, and that's when I talked to the experts that I was talking to. I talked to CSAFE and College Trust specifically in my contacts there, that they said that Boulder doesn't because they omitted it from their policy, and they do individual investing, but they have around a $200 million portfolio, which allows for a lot more diversification than a small town. So that's the only difference.
Yeah, sure.
There. That's the only one that I know of that does that. Yeah.
Elise?
Is Ryan? I thought the city of Aspen was invested in College Trust.
They are. So I did verify that every community in Eagle, Garfield, and Pitkin counties are all invested in College Trust, and the other towns that I've worked in Colorado are. And I think the main thrust of it, and Christy talked about it, is, you've got this entity that is specific to Colorado governments. And so they have, 1,500 clients. So that's counties, towns, school districts, special districts. And they're keeping a watch and keeping their investment compliant with Colorado revised statutes. So that's why it makes sense for a small community that, isn't going to effectively go out on the free market, especially with limited funds to invest. And so, I think that's why they've been a trusted advisor and a trusted investor for decades for the town.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I just wanted to understand that.
Sorry, we have about 200 different governments, and honestly, they all invest in Colo Trust. And like Town of Avon, I just finished a meeting with, and their finance director is on their board, and they're just diligent about making sure that they follow the kind of the safety liquidity yield model.
Thank you.
In your experience, have any of the other municipalities sought to influence Colo Trust's investment policy by somewhat more strong encouragement not to invest in oil and gas, tobacco, defense, things like that?
Not to my knowledge. The kind of ESG is, environmental, societal governance model of investing, kind of responsible society investing. It's really more applicable to stocks and equity than it is per se to, I guess, debt. Most of those ESG funds are stock funds.
Yeah, that's true. But looking through the Colo Trust Prime and Plus portfolios, they do actually have a lot of commercial paper and a lot of corporate debt, much of which, frankly, look to be financial institutions, a lot of which, interestingly enough, is Japanese banks and motor companies, which is kind of interesting. But again, I'll just chime in. I fully support Elise's initiative to drive Colo Trust policy, and I think we want to take as firm a stance as possible to underscore our commitment to the climate emergency that we declared last year. And so if we can come up with stronger language than what we have, that would also be pretty welcome. Thanks for all of the amendments for investment in owned securities. I do see the point about full and open procurement on page 3. I would only suggest that our longstanding relationship with Colorado Trust does not exempt us from our procurement policy, so we probably want to put a note to the file or something that says we contemplated this, and for the following reasons we chose not to procure full and open, and it could be based upon whatever cost, convenience of the government, or whatever you want to call it. I guess the last thing is the matter of process, though, because we have had numerous discussions, and in as much as I understand the explanation of how this resolution that was voted by council was returned, and I fully accept that it needed an awful lot more discussion, which has been very positive and constructive. What I heard was that the staff moved to return this to the town council agenda. And so as a point of order, Jeff, I guess I'd come back to you and say, what if staff wants to return any other resolution? What are the restrictions on the return of a resolution for conversation, notwithstanding the broadly shared view that this needed more talk, more discussion?
Sure. So to address your procedural point, there are items that come to the agenda based upon direction from town council, and there's also things that come from staff. For example, administrative matters often appear on the agenda from staff, text amendments to the code that are initiated by staff, and other matters, approving agreements and various things. And here, again, because the resolution was adopted, it took immediate effect, but it was almost impossible to implement. It required more immediate attention of the town council. So, one option, I guess, could have been for the town staff to come back and present exactly the presentation they did tonight with the recommendation that the town council revisit the policy based on their recommendations about, related to its implementation, and then come back at a future date. But again, it was brought back, in this case, an amended policy was brought back, in this case at the same time, again, for efficiency's sake and the need to get this implemented. There are statutory requirements for the investment of funds, and if this was, the adopted policy was going to make it difficult to implement, then here it just was prudent to bring it back at the same time.
Well, just as a point, it does strike me that we are treading into the realm of what is arbitrary. And so if staff can arbitrarily bring back resolutions, no matter that we all agree it needed discussion, then that seems to be a problem with governance. So, okay. But, I mean, it's also true, Jeff, that the urgency on this is somewhat lost on me. We haven't had an investment policy ever until now. So, frankly, having pursued...
Well, I think there were two things. One is the urgency of attempting to implement a policy that would not, that was going to create some problems. There was that, that was partly driving it then. And then I guess it's also the, adopting the policy in at least the form presented tonight would help allow the audit to be concluded. And somebody, Christy or Ryan or Paul, can correct me if I'm incorrect in that statement, but I think that was also part of the driving for bringing this to council.
Okay. Well, again, I won't belabor the point. My points are registered, so, let us proceed with a vote.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah.
Would my fellow counselors be opposed to amending the language of the note here about oil and gas to just strengthen it a little bit to say that the town of Basalt discourages investments in oil and gas companies rather than due to the impact of oil and gas to the environment, but also to include reference to because we've declared a climate emergency and the impact, thus the impact of oil and gas to the environment is an issue. I could work with you on the language or something, but I would, how do people feel about including some reference to our climate emergency, which then grounds that note? Does that make sense? It was not my most eloquent comment.
Great point. I like it.
Glenn?
Glenn?
Well, I like the idea of saying, hey, we shouldn't invest in oil and gas, but on the same note, I also look at big picture things, and sometimes money can be had by investing in oil and gas, and that's like our ultimate goal is to take these town coffers and generate revenue for the least amount of money, give the greatest return. Granted, this year for oil and gas isn't the best thing, but next year it might be. So, I like the idea of discouraging it, but on the same token, we're invested in Colorado Trust. We kind of got to trust what they're doing.
Elise, I'd like...
Yeah, and I'm not... Sorry, I'm not changing the language from the discouragement aspect. I just think that when we just say kind of broadly because of the impact to the environment, it doesn't actually ground it in the rationale that we have declared a climate emergency. I just want to tie those two loose ends together.
Hey, Elise, I was working on some language as you guys were all talking, and I said the town of Basalt has declared a climate emergency, and therefore the town of Basalt discourages investments in oil and gas companies. Period. How does that?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm amenable to that language too. I share Simon's concerns about the handcuffing. As long as we're not handcuffing ourselves, we have to kind of deal with Colorado Trust and the state it's in now. And we need to, I think it's super important to document where we are now. and reflect those aspirations, though. So that was my only comment. So I'm amenable to it.
I was just going to say that both these amendments, it does the same thing, but it's clear, whatever we do here, we're all on the same page where equal opportunities exist. We're going to take the one without the oil and gas and without the so-called sin stocks that we talk about a lot. But where they don't exist, we don't want to handcuff ourselves by not being open to those opportunities, especially when it might be 0.01% of a whole pool of funds that we can't go in and extract.
Yeah. Yeah, at least I would support Christie's language if you're comfortable with it. I think the sentiment is a good one to pass on and express. I mean, we're going to stay in the fund. More voices that are added to the pool of fund, the fund participants, that will influence leadership, I'm sure. I think it is also true that the oil and gas industry is not always identifiable as oil and gas. It's usually, I know we have some investments in energy enterprises that do embrace fossil fuel, but a lot of them, and the ones that we're participating in personally, are very progressive, and they're leading fuel switching. They are pushing renewables, and while they're in natural gas now, they're in natural gas as a bridge to get to renewables that can come online and then ultimately replace gas. So there are energy enterprises that are really leading the environmental movement on dealing with greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that I would personally support the language, and I think it speaks well of our community to step up and kind of express our values. So I think it's a good addition. So is there more discussion? So I would entertain a motion from council to approve the Resolution 21, adopting an amended investment policy.
Elise, do you want to interject the language appropriately?
Yeah, as amended. I think all we have to say is amended. Christie's language appeared to be acceptable to our majority, so as amended is the way I would suggest it, as with the amended language.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 21, series of 20, as amended with Christie's language suggested by Elise.
Second.
Second.
They've been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I think we better call the roll, Pam.
Thank you. Let's begin with Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you, Ryan. Bill Infante?
Yes.
Thank you, Bill. David Knight?
Yes.
Len Drummond?
Yes.
Elise Hoddle?
Yes.
And Bill Kane?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. We are next on to an appointment to our Basalt Financial Advisory Board. Dieter Schindler, who was a spirited candidate in the last municipal election. We have his resume. It's in the packet. Discussion. Christy, do you want to add anything to, or do you want to just call for a vote on this?
We're just really excited that Dieter had applied for the Finance Advisory Board. We believe the whole Finance Board is super excited about it. We believe it's going to be a great addition to the FAB, and really going to round it out with all of his managerial experience and all the business experience he brings to the table.
Questions about Kurt? I think he prefers Dieter, so, yeah, I think he'd be a great addition to our board, but, would, defer to the council for a motion.
Mayor, I move the town council appoint Dieter Schindler to the Basalt Financial Advisory Board.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. I think we can do this by voice vote.
Yes.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Any nays? Thank you very much. We're up to item 8C, resolution number 22, series of 2020. Resolution of the Town Council of Town of Basalt, Colorado, adopting a personal identifying information, PII policy. Christy Hamrick, explain what we're doing here.
Yes. Okay, so the PII policy was at the request. It was something that came up in the audit for the audited financial statements, is that Paul and his team brought to our attention that back a few years ago, the legislation in the state had passed some state statutes that required that we have a personal protection of sensitive information policy. And so that is what this policy entails, and mostly it's around human resources and how we're handling the information from an HR perspective for employees, like social security numbers and date of birth and things like that, and making sure that we're shredding that, and we're not letting it hang out anywhere and that kind of thing. But it's a cleanup item, but it is a good policy. I'm glad the state had adopted that, and that it gives us that guidance of what we need to do.
Great. Thank you. Sounds like a good thing to have in place. Discussion, questions of Christy on our personal identifying information? So I assume this includes counselors. Any of our info would be destroyed upon leaving. Yeah, great. Okay, motion to approve resolution number 22, 2020.
Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 22, series of 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any nays? Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sorry to do this, but as a resolution, this will need to be taken by a roll call vote. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I knew we wouldn't.
Are you ready, sir? Okay.
Uh,
Bill Infante,
Yes.
Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
thank you. Bill Kane,
I think he might be having technical difficulties.
yeah, I think so. Move on to David Knight,
David, are you there?
David Knight,
Yeah, we had a little,
I'm back, yes.
Okay,
You
yeah.
got to me. Yeah, the audio dropped for a minute there.
okay, thank you. Okay, so Bill Kane, your vote?
yes.
Okay, thank you. And David Knight, you were a yes?
Yeah, sorry, it's just Mark.
That's fine, thank you. And Glenn Drummond?
Yes.
And Ryan Slack?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We're on to item 8D, the 7:30. I will point out we're only 6 minutes off. This is.
I only have 3 minutes still.
Yeah. So this is a public hearing, first reading of ordinance number 13, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, granting site plan approval, Southside floodplain, Reach 2, ESA, environmentally sensitive area review approval, community housing review approval, and a license agreement for an automated car wash located at 115 Southside Drive, Lot 1 of the Basalt Business Center West Subdivision, Basalt, Colorado. James Lint.
Yeah, thank you. We do have John Belkin, the applicant, with us tonight, and he can Deuce his team once it becomes applicant comments. So this is a public hearing and first reading of an ordinance on an application that's submitted by the Von Ruin Group for site plan review, environmentally sensitive area reach to Southside floodplain review, and community housing review to pay cash in lieu of affordable housing, as well as a license agreement for landscaping in the town's right-of-way. And this is for the construction of a one-bay automated car wash at 115 Southside Drive. This is a site plan of the property. Here is Cody Lane right here, and here is Southside Drive, and here is the subject property. It is a vacant lot of about 46,000 square feet, and it's located in the Basalt Business Center West PUD, or BBC West as we call it, and it's located in the Southside floodplain, and we've got a photo of the site. This is standing on Southside Drive, looking back at the site and looking back at Cody Lane and Highway 82. As I indicated, the proposal is for a one-bay automated car wash with a vehicular access in from Cody Lane, and then they have a bailout lane here back onto Cody Lane. And then they've got a second entrance that's in and out entrance off of Southside Drive. They're proposing a parking lot with vacuums on the south side of the structure. Here's the parking lot, and it would have vacuum facilities. And they've proposed to sell some right-of-way to the town for head-in parking. For public parking, and we'll go into that in more detail as part of the presentation. The review process is that the Planning and Zoning Commission is the recommending body to the Town Council on all the land use requests that are being made. And it should be noted that the BBC West Owners Association provided a letter of consent to make the application, which is included in your packet as part of the application materials. In reviewing the application, town staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission evaluated a series of discussion items, and I'd like to briefly go through some of those items with council. The first being consistency with the BBC West PUD requirements. They're proposing to satisfy all the dimensional requirements of the BBC West PUD. And the use of a car wash is a permitted use in the PUD, and they don't have to apply for any amendments to the PUD. With regards to consistency with the neighborhood character, there are several auto-related businesses in the area. You've got Big O Tires over here. You've got Basalt Quick Lube just over here. And staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that the use could complement those other auto-related uses, and that the building design, which you can see here, is compatible with the other industrial buildings in the area, in that it's industrial style. With regards to some of the other items, consistency with the master plan, it's designated as existing mixed-use industrial on the future land use map in the master plan, and staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that the use is consistent with this designation. Staff also felt that it's consistent with some of the goals of the master plan that relate to the BBC West vacant lots being built out consistent with the industrial zoning instead of them being housing. That was a big discussion item during the 2020 master plan. Other topics for discussion that were evaluated and that are in the town's Planning and Zoning Commission memo include the Southside floodplain. As I indicated, the property is in the floodplain. The application was referred out to the town's river hydrologist, which is Robert Crable of Matrix Design Group. Crable reviewed the application and found that the grading that was proposed as part of the project would not increase the base flood elevation on adjacent properties, which is had a little bit of feedback there, which is one of the requirements, the main requirement of the floodplain regulations. And he felt that they met the standards for Southside floodplain development, as is indicated in the letter that he has in the packet. Pickens County also provided referral comments to the town on the application, and they indicated that the structure should be properly flood proofed and that chemical storage for the car wash should be elevated at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation, which is proposed. And staff has reinforced that with draft conditions in your ordinance, in your packet. Other topics that were evaluated included the environmental aspects of the project. The applicant is proposing to reclaim water through a water reclamation system, and there's proposed that it would significantly recycle water from the system, and they can go into more detail as part of the applicant presentation on this topic. They're also proposing to have no idling signage for those people that are waiting in line to go through the car wash. And so that's been reinforced as a condition of approval as well. On the topic of environmental aspects, the applicant has requested a reduction in the town's water EQR requirements and fees for the water reclamation system that they're proposing to use. In reviewing that request, SGM, who is the town's consulting engineer and working with Public Works, have recommended that the applicants be charged the full EQR fee at the beginning of the process, and then once the project were up and running for about a year, then they could come in and have an audit of water use, and the town could rebate EQR fees if it was operating properly with the water reclamation system. So that's been included as a condition. This is similar to what the town did in terms of the Valero car wash that was approved some years back. They required an audit for reclamation. Staff also has included condition that the applicant meet the sustainable building regulations of the town, and that's in the draft ordinance. Other discussion items include affordable housing mitigation. The applicant is proposing that the automated car wash will only generate 1.5 full-time employees, which is considerably below the 4 employees per 1,000 that is anticipated in the town code for commercial development. And the applicant is required to mitigate for 15% of those employees that are generated based on the town code requirements. So the applicant is proposing to pay cash in lieu of affordable housing instead of building housing because they're only required to do a fraction of a unit. The amount of cash in lieu would be about $23,000. And the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, BAC, reviewed the request and was supportive of the applicant paying cash in lieu, which is included in the draft conditions. Other considerations that the Planning and Zoning Commission evaluated included traffic generation. The traffic generated would be about 15 trips in the peak hour times above the amount allocated for the property in the 2016 and 2017 Southside traffic study that was done for all of Southside. The applicant is proposing some mitigation measures in terms of traffic. They're proposing to mitigate by not opening until after 8:10 a.m. When the morning rush from the school, high school, has had the opportunity to kind of clear out. And then in the PM peak hour, they're proposing to advertise that it's not the best time to use the car wash in the PM peak time. But their biggest mitigation factor in terms of traffic is staff has included a condition requiring that they contribute to the Basalt Avenue Cody Lane roundabout on a fair share basis based on their trip generation. This is similar to the requirement that has been provided for other projects like Stotts Mill, the Basalt Mini Storage Expansion, and 525 Basalt Avenue, as well as Basalt Vista project. And staff has reinforced that in the conditions of approval. There's also a $1 per square foot Southside transportation fee that's included in the conditions as well. In terms of vehicular access, the Basalt Business Center West PUD has specific guidelines for where access can be on this lot. So it prescribed that they could have access on the eastern extent of the lot in basically the location they've proposed it here off of Cody Lane. Then there's also design requirements that they could have an access near this corner on Cody Lane and Southside Drive, similar to the access point where they have the bailout lane. And then the PUD also prescribes that if they're going to have an access on Southside Drive, that it be down here in this corner. So they've followed the access guidelines that are part of the PUD for the lot. The applicant also adjusted their site plan during the staff's review at the TRC level to make this just a one-way in. They previously had proposed two-way traffic coming out of here onto Cody Lane. Staff, in discussing it with the applicant, felt that it was best to kind of force traffic towards Southside Drive instead of pushing traffic onto Cody Lane to go east back towards the Basalt Avenue intersection. The reason for that is staff felt that it was a better scenario to have people merging into traffic on Southside Drive at the north end of Southside Drive rather than diving into traffic at Basalt Avenue from Cody Lane. And that was kind of part of the discussion with the police department as well. Other topics included the sidewalk. There's a sidewalk proposed along Cody Lane here. Staff and the applicant in some site visits noticed that there are a lot of people that drop their cars off actually walk down Cody Lane to get to Basalt Avenue in the park and ride. So it was felt that it's appropriate to have a sidewalk along Cody Lane, at least for the extent of the property. And then there's been built into the conditions a requirement that they provide right-of-way for a future sidewalk potential on Southside Drive. There's no connections on this side of Southside Drive for sidewalk further down, so it was felt that it was appropriate to reserve space for the future. Other discussion items included the trees that are along West Cody Lane. The applicant originally proposed to remove most of the trees along Cody Lane, but the Planning and Zoning Commission, at their initial site visit for the project, identified that they were concerned about that, and so the applicant revised their proposal to try to preserve considerable trees here at the corner area, and then they also proposed to preserve a significant maple on the eastern edge of the property near the intersection. There are some other mature trees along here currently, and I'll go back to the photo here in a minute, but the applicants have indicated that they need to remove those to meet the floodplain requirements because the trees are in a berm, which if the berm remained, they would have difficulty meeting the floodplain, and the applicant can speak to that in more detail as part of their application review. But they're proposing to mitigate for those trees on site with additional plantings, as you can see in the landscaping plan, and those are conditions of approval. Kind of getting to the end of the discussion items, technical comments. There is a ditch that runs along the eastern edge of the property. The applicants are proposing to pipe that ditch and put it in a pipe. The Public Works Department was interested in having a maintenance agreement for that ditch if they put it in a pipe, and so that's been included as a requirement in the conditions of approval, requiring that the applicant maintain that section of ditch once it's piped. And then another final topic includes the proposal for the town to purchase right-of-way for the head-in spaces that are proposed off of Southside Drive. There are 21 head-in parking spaces that are proposed for public parking off of Southside Drive. And in the pre-app stages before COVID hit and we had the lockdown, the staff suggested that the applicant look at the potential to have the town purchase some of that right-of-way so that we could better organize the parking in the area. Let me go to some photos here. Most of you may be familiar with the parking scenario out there now. The town staff has had some significant parking issues over time with cars kind of parked double stacked here along Southside Drive. They usually pull more cars in here. And so staff saw this as an opportunity to kind of fix that problem. And so the applicants made a proposal as part of their application that the town buy some right-of-way for this parking. And they proposed to sell it to the town for the per square foot amount that they're buying the property for, which is $27.92. And so they proposed that the town buy it for $104,000 and then build the spaces for $54,000. Staff has evaluated and came up with some options for council to consider. They're in your packet and we've got them on the screen here. The first option is the applicant's proposal, basically, which is the town buys the right-of-way for $104,000 and pays the value of $54,000 to construct the parking. A second option there is option number 2, which is more of a lease-to-own type of option, where the town could do a 10-year lease and then at the end of that lease period own the right-of-way for the parking. In this option, staff was thinking that the value of the property at the $27.92 per square foot probably was too high based on the fact that the area that the town would be getting is basically setback area, so no buildings could be built in it anyway. So staff in this option proposed that it would be half the amount of the $104,000. Option number 3, which staff in evaluating thought was the most viable and justifiable, would base the amount that the town would pay for additional right-of-way on the additional number of spaces that could be provided around the property. So they're proposing 21 on-street parking spaces. Currently, there's about 15 existing spaces, not kind of double counting parking that's adjacent to each other. So there would be a 6 net new on-street parking space gain. So using that figure, staff came up with about $21,000 to pay for that right-of-way. Plus the $54,000 for constructing the spaces, for a total of $75,000. And so that was an option 3. And then maybe an option 4, which we have in your packet, would be for the applicant to dedicate the right-of-way and construct the parking, but maybe get a rebate on some building-related fees in the amount of about $50,000. So those are some of the options. There's probably more options out there, and we can have some council discussion on this. Staff would recommend this evening hearing applicant comments and then taking public comments as it is a public hearing. and providing council discussion. It should be noted, the P&Z recommended approval of the car wash site plan application with the conditions that you have in the ordinance in your packet. So with that, I'd like to stop sharing my screen, and I will turn it over to John Belkin, the applicant.
John, good evening.
Good evening. How are you? Thanks everybody for good work and difficult times. My name is John Bell. I am the applicant on this with a partner, Basalt, on Riverside Drive. I'm an attorney. On person myself and a good friend of mine, a developer and operator. I think we have a person on the phone, Ian Nichols on the phone.
I'm getting about every other word.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, you're kind of cutting out. Yeah.
Freaking up, yeah.
Okay. How do I solve that?
It sounds better.
I'm on my internet here, so.
Yeah, sounds good already.
Now we can hear every word.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I have it right in front of me. You get to look at my ugly mug. Yeah, so, I live in Basalt. I live on Riverside Drive, and I'm a local in the Valley, and this is a project that I'm doing with a good friend of mine and partner. And I also have on the phone Yancey Nickel from Sopris Engineering. He's been helping us a lot with the civil side and the design side. We also have an architect assisting us who they're based in Denver, our architect and our landscape architect. They do car washes. They're working on car washes really all over the United States, but they've got a number on the Western Slope and in Denver and things like that. I think Yancey's on the phone. Yancey, are you there? No. Hopefully Yancey's on the phone. Can you guys hear me?
Can you hear
okay?
me, Don?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I'll be available for any questions.
Okay. Yeah, so as James said, I think James went into this a little bit. I came up with this idea just because this property is owned for a car wash, and it's been on the market for some time, as many of you know, probably know more about than I do. Aspen Ski Co. has owned this for, I think, maybe more than 20 years at this point. And it happens to be the right size and the right configuration to have a car wash. And the idea really spawned from the fact that I don't believe, and most people I talk to that are locals don't believe we have a good a source for a car wash. So much so that some people I talk to say they try to combine a trip to Grand Junction with going to a car wash in Grand Junction. So yeah, this is a 120-foot tunnel automated car wash. You've probably seen them before in Denver. We've designed it to look pretty nice, candidly. Folks that we've sent the conceptuals to in the car wash business oftentimes will say, wow, that looks really nice. What's that going to cost? It's really sort of in line with what they should cost, and we think it's going to look really nice. The way it's designed is, for the traffic to flow in from West Cody, that's a one-way in. And then you'll have 3 lanes to go through pay station queues. You can pay cash, pay with credit card. The model of these things is to have memberships, not unlike a fitness membership that you pay, and there'd be one of the lanes you would go right through. It would either scan your license plate, I'm told, or some sort of something like you would have when you go over the Tappan Zee Bridge or something, if people are familiar with that, or outside New York, when you go through a toll booth, and you turn left, go through the tunnel, and out the other side, and you'd make a right, not a left, because we've limited so that people can't turn left and go back towards Cody, but you make a right, and then all these spaces that you see are, those are for vacuums. Those aren't parking spaces. And then you would exit onto South Side, and presumably I would think most people would want to make a left on South Side. A feature of this design is, and this was really important to the business, to the HOA, is that we try to help with solving the traffic issues that everybody is familiar with. They're on South Side by many of the businesses, inclusive of Big O. So what we've proposed is this, I'll just call it perpendicular parking, to get the cars off of South Side. In conjunction with that, we've worked with the town to eliminate some of the parking on Cody. Yancey can talk a little bit about Cody Lane, but my experience with Cody Lane is several. Besides the fact that there seems like there's a couple people that are been living in their car parking on Cody Lane when I've gone to visit the site. It seems as though Cody Lane is maybe too narrow to have parking on it in any case. So there wouldn't be any more parking on Cody Lane, but we would be offsetting that with adding all these spaces on South Side. I think James also mentioned we're planning to pipe what's called a tailwater ditch that, if people are familiar with this property, runs right along the east boundary, and cut back some of these trees. And I think it's going to be better because if you walk over there now, you'll see that all the trees there are dumping all their material into that ditch. That ditch, I think, is maintained. Paul Finger has been one that's cleaned the ditch over time, and there's some equipment that manages some water that the HOA or some of the businesses in the HOA are pulling out of that tailwater ditch till it dries up, including the HOA is watering the grass that's in between Cody Lane and this property, and then I guess there's a pipe that cuts around the corner and down South Side. They're just drawing the water from that tailwater ditch, so we'd be looking to make the controls a little more central so that other businesses can access, and we would use some of that water to keep that grass area green. And let's see, what else can I tell you? I think that's sort of it. We tried our best to really solve what we think is at least what we've heard from the HOA, is a significant parking issue on South Side by this plan. The HOA, we met with them back, I think, in the beginning of March. They were wholly in support of this plan. And in fact, they were pretty enthusiastic. They thought it was a good idea. So that's the background. This is not a franchise. This will be one of a kind. But you can, these type of businesses exist. You pick the places, and there's one near us. There's one in Grand Junction. I've not been to the one that's near the Costco in I think Eagle, but it may be similar to that. There's a number of them in Denver, around the Denver metro area. There's towns perhaps more like ours, like Missoula, and there's one going in Jackson Hole right now that's kind of in the town of Jackson, actually. It's sort of similar to this, so they're sort of springing up, and they offer a good car wash on a plan that makes sense for people to come in and leave and get out quickly. And then I think a big selling point, or a big benefit that people really want, is people want to be able to vacuum their cars. So that's what all these vacuums are, and the number of vacuums is sort of linked.
John, I want to reserve time for council to questions to you, so I'm going to have to cut you short here a little bit. Okay. Questions of council by counsel of the applicant. John, I don't know if you or Yancey could answer the question. I'm curious about the water recycling feature of this, and I guess the question would be, what is the efficiency of this thing? I mean, obviously there's nothing's 100%, but is can you recycle 80 or 90 or 70%? And is there wastewater, or is it, 100% captured? Can you describe a little bit more about the recycling plan?
It might be best to start, you can hear me okay? It might be best to have Yancey start because he's addressed it in the engineering report. But, and then I can kind of finish with, once he talks about that, I can finish with what we put in our application so that people can kind of do an apples to oranges comparison of what this car wash will do compared to if you wash the car in your driveway or if you do another type of car wash. This is much more efficient.
All right, fair enough. Yancey, are you going to address this?
Can you hear me, Bill?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Well, based upon talking to car wash suppliers of equipment and kind of the industry, there's a lot of variables on the recycle efficiency. And it's a lot on the type of wash that the user picks. If they pick a premium wash to a general wash or whatever, has a different quality of the wash, so the water has to be different. But you could expect, in the worst scenario, like a 30% recycle and up to as much as 70% recycle in the right conditions. So we would anticipate probably an average between 40 and maybe 55, 60% recycle on an average. From what discussion and research I've had with car wash supplier equipment.
Got it. So I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but just generally, so the EQR assessment is predicated on 100% consumptive use. You may operate 50% recovery, then you're going to come back and look for some credit back on the EQR assessment based on actual monitoring and metering, so we know what the actual consumptive use is.
Well, yeah. I wish it was that easy, Bill, but it's probably going to be more on how successful the business is on the number of cars as much as the recycle and, of course, our winter months and a lot of different things that I'm not sure if John's going to be able to come back and be able to recoup some of those EQRs or not. And the EQR schedule that the town has is probably pretty old data, so I'm not sure how that was established from the beginning. But just on the surface mathematical, what you described is correct.
Okay.
But it could be more on the number of cars more so than the recycle per se.
Yeah.
Combination.
What happens to the wastewater here? Is this just goes into sanitary sewer, or do you guys, I'm picturing a lot of wastewater being generated by the facility. Where does that water go?
Yeah, by the plumbing code, it has to go to the sanitary sewer. But with the recycle and sand and oil traps and et cetera, all the sediments and contaminants will be trapped, and then they will have to be pumped and taken off site, just like you would a sewer or a restaurant grease trap. Just a different kind of site product.
All right.
Yeah.
Just a counsel of the applicant, could maybe James or I don't want to drag us out, but I am struggling a little bit with the rationale for why the town is being asked to acquire this right away. I mean, I think there's certainly a point of view that one could have that would say, well, this is kind of the responsibility of the Basalt West commercial PUD to sort this out. And I'm not saying I won't go forward, but I would love to hear a little bit of rationale as to why the town would be obligated or sort of on the hook for, because it seems like a big sum of money. I mean, parking space is 200 square feet at $28 a square foot. We're paying $5,600 per parking space. That's at 100%. I think the staff's recommendation was maybe half of that. So maybe James, if you could possibly explain the option 3 a little bit more and tell us what we're actually doing here with this parking?
Yeah, the option number 3 basically says that the town would be getting 6 additional on-street parking spaces around the property. And so the purchase of right-of-way would be based on the amount of square footage related to those 6 additional parking spaces, which, using the per square foot value that the applicant is buying the property for, that turns out to be about $21,000. And then the applicant has proposed that the town construct or pay for the amount of constructing the spaces. And so we have the cost estimate of $54,000 to actually construct the spaces. There could be some savings if the town chose not to use asphalt and simply use road base. I think that's about a $12,000 savings based on the cost estimate. Susan, do you have anything to add?
Well, we started out that it really wasn't something that was caused by this development, the fact that we have such a serious parking problem. And if you knew how much police time, staff time, concerns from the fire department because of the parking congestion and that we've experienced in the last few years, we really looked at it as an opportunity to solve that problem. The other thing is that sometime in the future, we do have the South Side underpass, and that we would need to have this right-of-way. So, we really thought that this would be a good use of town funds. And of course, when we started these discussions, we were, totally in a different kind of financial maybe outlook. So we kind of developed these options for the council to look at. We were, also as kind of noted here, we're willing to, look at maybe rebating some of the fees that the developer pays, or there's a small amount of restricted funds that are applicable in the South Side area that we could use. We didn't necessarily go first to say, hey, Basalt West, we think you guys should cover this cost. And partly just a recognition that they are a good generator of income, and part of our economic base, et cetera. So that's why we didn't jump there.
There'll be a payback from increased sales tax activity to amortize our investment in this parking. I don't know if you guys have thought about what that payback period would be, but it's probably relatively short, I would guess. So I'm satisfied with the answer. Thank you. David?
Yeah, quick question. In the Roaring Fork Fire Rescue letter, there was a potential concern around having enough turn radius for fire trucks to get into the lot there. Has that been addressed? Are we good on that? There's enough room?
Yeah, let me share my screen once again and show you where that was at. It was right here in this location where my cursor is. And so there may need to be a slight adjustment, but I think Yancey has looked at it with the fire district and believes that it's okay the way it is. Yancey, do you want to provide comment on that?
Sure, James. So if we have to increase that, we've done a fire truck turning radius, and I think the fire department couldn't read the dimensions, but if they need a 5 foot more additional radius, we'll be able to do that. And in the absolutely worst scenario was we would have to eliminate one of those parking spots along Southside Drive, increase it even more. But it's both sides. So when we increase that and Southside Drive is wide enough, I think the fire district then will understand that we have adequate turning radius. So, so the condition is acceptable to us.
Yeah, David, there is a condition in the draft ordinance that requires them to evaluate that with the fire district prior to a building permit and adjust it as needed.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Any additional questions of council to the applicant? Glenn?
I'm not whether this is town or applicant. As far as the parking spaces are concerned, if we were to get the south side underpass project completed in our right of way, acquiring the right of way as our main objective, would we lose parking spaces that would then create more of a problem?
Potentially, yes. If we did the south side underpass, we may need some of that area for the actual underpass. So you potentially would lose some of those parking spaces in the future.
And is like that a concern for those? Because I'm sure that most of that parking is like with Big O, got tire changes, people drop off cars, they get them in, they park them over there, they set them out there, get out of.
Yeah, I think it could be a concern, but you know the underpass has a considerable price tag to it, so it could be some years down the line. We would probably have to work on some solutions to parking at that point in time when we were ready to install the underpass. And it could be, you know, looking at parking spaces directly under on the other side of the underpass, you know, somewhere in the proximity here.
I mean, I ran the math on it. It's like worst case scenario looked about $7,300 a parking space. Best case scenario, $3,500 a parking space. Is that about accurate?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part. You kind of cut out.
I was just running the math on it, and it looked like worst case scenario, if we pay the most amount of money, we're $7,500 a parking space. Best case, we're $3,500.
That sounds right. Let me get my calculator and I can run that as well.
While we're doing that, are there additional questions of the applicant? That's from council. Elise?
Well, again, I'm not sure if it's an applicant or a town question, and maybe it's actually a rhetorical question, but I just want to throw it out there for the record. You know, is it our responsibility to pay for Big O to have a place to park its cars? I also wanted to put in a plug that we have signage next to the vacuums that say no idling, because I feel like that is actually a bigger issue possibly than just the folks waiting in queue. People are leaving their car running while they're vacuuming, especially in the summer. They want to keep the air conditioning on. So I see head nodding, so thank you.
Done.
And then further to the possibility in the future of having the underpass, I'm kind of questioning the change to the one-way direction, forcing folks out onto South Side, because if that were to become an underpass, that would, I don't know if that would be kind of making a mess of things, of folks trying to turn left out of there to get back to Few Lane from South Side. And my other question, to maybe this is something that the applicant can answer, is why is there anything, any study that would indicate that folks would turn left out of there and go up South Side? Because I feel like the least distance to travel would actually to be turned right on South Side and right on Cody Lane, and then you're right back to where you started.
If staff could please address a couple of those questions, and then maybe you can jump in as well, Yancy and John. You know, it was designed here at the entrance to be two ways, and we thought that once the roundabout is constructed at Basalt Avenue and Cody Lane, it might be most desirable to send people back out on Cody Lane, because it would make it easier for them to get into traffic with a roundabout there. The thought was, until a roundabout is there, we should try to encourage them to go back down Southside Drive to the north end, because you have a stop controlled intersection there and it's easier to get people in. The bailout lane originally was also directed towards the east in Cody Lane, and so we just had them square it up here. So in the future, if the underpass is built, it may be desirable to send them down Cody Lane. And so it's designed in the future so that you would have the potential to go two ways out of there, and you would have the potential to go out of this access as well. But until you have the roundabout or until you have an underpass here, it was felt that the best way is to push them down Southside Drive.
And you could add that the bailout lane isn't really going to be used.
And the bailout lane, hopefully is hardly used, and that's kind of the thought.
Yeah, James, if I may.
Sure.
So there's some flexibility here.
Yeah.
Yancey, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if with the underpass, I can see a lot of things there that's gonna be variable, and a lot of it is you're gonna want a primary pedestrian corridor under that underpass with vehicles. But, when we've looked at that master plan, there's, thoughts that you could even have an off and on ramp to 82 or a combination or not. So if you kept the signal light in the underpass where it's at and did a underpass here, you might even disconnect West Cody between the bailout and the underpass. So you would have to go right, but you would want to do a traffic model. And I think with the instances, the three we have has all the flexibility to help with whatever that approach would be in the future.
Thank you.
Additional comments, questions? Okay.
I have one quick one.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Is there any option? I know 4 was like the best for the town, but could we have just the applicant pay for the parking spots? Is that an option too? Question.
Got to be an option. I don't know if it's an attractive option.
Well, it just wasn't presented, so I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, thanks.
Because
I think I have to be candid. We're paying a lot of money for a piece of property. It's expensive. As we all know, all property in the valley is expensive. James came to me with the 4 different. All we did essentially is say, hey, look, we're paying this much for the property. The parking spots and the sidewalk on that side are the parking spots mostly are, if we did a per square foot, this would be the number, and that's your number 1 in the staff options. James shared with us, he didn't think that was going to be acceptable, and we said, okay, we understand that, and it's also difficult times. I have to be candid. We feel like can you hear me okay? We feel like we're helping to solve a parking problem that existed at this location prior to our interest in this property. I mean, I just know because I live in Basalt and I, like so many, go to get my tires changed at Big O and you can't find a place to park. And so we feel like by doing this, we're solving a number of problems that exist around this property. And yeah, I mean, this is this is permitted use for this lot. We contemplated in the PUD, which is part of the reason both speak about it. So we haven't really, and we've had to live with a lot of the controls that are part of the PUD. All the ingress, egress, and site control issues we've
we've worked with. So, you know, it would be hard to, be hard to justify, you know, paying all that much for that piece of property and not being able to, you know, get something for it, even if it's incremental.
I got one last question. So, like along Ryan's note, let's say that there is no parking. What do you guys? What's the plan look like if we don't buy that right away?
Well, well, what you'd end up with is you would end up with 9 parallel parking spaces along Southside Drive versus the 21 or 20 head in. So then, as an overall, once this project started, every time I was in Basalt, I stopped and counted the cars, trying to figure out not legal parking spaces, but illegally parked and et cetera. There was usually about 10 on West Cody and about 12 on South Side when they were peaked, which was pretty close to about 21, 22 cars that were crammed in here, double parked and side by parked. And so with the challenge that I heard or thought that the staff was giving us is, can we try to help not make the parking issue worse? Because by us putting entrances and getting to our lot and developing it, the only way you could do it is with parallel parking on South Side in our entrance. So you'd go from around 21, 22 parking spaces that we're somewhat illegally using out there down to basically 9 on Southside Drive, if that answers your question.
I think the key word there is illegally using. I mean, it's kind of like what Elise said, like, I guess it's just me, like, I'm kind of stuck on why are we subsidizing Big O's business model when there's a lot of subsidy that could be provided in other businesses throughout the town, especially at this point. It's kind of a hard deal to go, okay, we spent 80 grand for 21 parking spaces that are primarily, as far as I can see, drove by today, they're going to be used by Big O.
You know, the only thing I can add to that is the business HOA. You know, I think there's probably a number of businesses. It's probably not just Big O, but because we heard from some of them at the HOA meeting. But I think it's considered sort of a community problem over there for everybody. And the thought was by planning something like this, we would be solving that, you know, issue because I don't think it's just Big O. It's probably an issue for all the people commuting, you know, that are driving around on South Side and West Cody. And I can tell you, if you park on West Cody, if you put cars on West Cody without this developed at all, whether it's this car wash or it's just plain dirt or the next thing that goes there, the road isn't, frankly, probably not wide enough to have people parking and then having cars going either direction on West Cody. It's just a difficult situation. This is just my sense from what I heard from the HOA, and then having driven around over there over the last, since we put this under contract in October. It's just a difficult situation because there's really nowhere for people to put cars that are coming from all the different businesses and being parked on West Cody and all that. There's also been some issues, I think, with the plowing on West Cody, where there's cars being parked and the plows have to go around the cars. And I've just seen the remnants of that after snow and with some of the people that are sleeping in their cars over there too. So I think it's just a collective issue with all the different parking things, and I think this probably solves it.
But you guys as developer aren't willing to spend the money.
Well, I mean, I'm just being candid. We're paying $1.3 million for the property. You know, it's I don't know if it's overpriced or not. It was listed for quite a bit more.
Looks like Crown bought it for $10.
What's that?
Looks like Crown bought it for $10.
sorry, Ms.
Well-
but yeah.
I think I'd add is if we had any use for the parking or had needed a parking at all, the challenge is to meet the zero rise in the floodplain in this area, drove the site plan to the extent, and putting that angled parking on south side was a very hard challenge between the architect and myself to even get it to work because it crowded us. We lost right of way. So I think the applicant's gone out of his way to try to help to be a team player solving an issue. We don't need that parking, and it wouldn't affect us if it was there or not as an applicant.
Have you approached the HOA on addressing the parking costs? I mean, it's a community issue. I deal with all the stuff over there. I know what you guys are addressing on this. It just seems it's a lot of money for the town to pony up for an HOA problem, if anything, because I know how restrictive that HOA is. Whole nother story.
We didn't ask them to pay for it. No.
Well,
I would only add,
let me offer something here. I think in terms of managing our time tonight, these are really two separate issues before us. This is a site plan review. I think we can move forward and bring this matter to a vote tonight relative to the site plan. I think we can leave the site plan for the head-in parking off of Southside Drive, and we'll leave open the resolution of whether we want to participate financially in the acquisition of that land. So I would tend to want to sort of separate these issues a little bit and allow us to make headway and move forward with the plan, and then maybe explore other or additional options relative to the acquisition and improvement of the parking spaces. I mean, it occurs to me there are lots of possibilities, possibly a lease arrangement with Big O and Basalt Quick Lube. They're the principal users over there. It's going to really make their lives a lot easier. And there is a public interest in terms of getting those cars off the street. And, it is kind of a mess over there. And, it does reflect poorly on the community. So there's some to think about. But, my suggestion would be that we move forward on the site plan tonight and then convey our sentiments to the town staff and see if we can work through the town manager's office to arrive at some kind of equitable offer or resolution on the parking side of it. But it does seem like the town is picking up a very big tab for a very specific localized issue that, is really a commercial operations issue rather than a broad community issue. So, at any rate, they're my thoughts. In the interest of, David, go ahead.
Just real quick, I would like to see the HOA option pursued. And if there's a lease option, something more commercial where the town doesn't have to get involved, I think we need to see those if we go move forward into a second reading. Keep that moving as well,
Yeah, guys, just one thing. I want to just make sure everybody recognizes that, we're not, one thing about our development here is we aren't parking any cars. So we're not in the business of having any cars parked on our site for more than, whatever it takes for them to pass through the tunnel and vacuum, which is an interesting thought if you think about it. We are actually going to be parking no cars on this site. So other uses would be parking cars. So we're not actually generating a need for any parking, which is actually kind of interesting if you think about it. So we're proposing, and I fully hear you, is we're proposing to help to solve a problem of parking cars that's happening around us. All the while, we're not parking any cars.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. John, have you had any, last thing we would say, have you had any communications with Big O about whether they would be willing to financially participate in using any of these parking spaces?
No, we haven't. I think could, but I can't. It would be good if the town could help us do that. Because by the way, I'm not exactly sure if it's all Big O, because one of the things we heard from the other members of the HOA is that they're using some of that parking as well. So if the town wants to we want to figure out a way to solve the problem over there, because if we can help solve the problem, it helps solve all the cars around our site, which we don't want either. So I think we're aligned candidly with the town and everyone else around there. It's just a question of how to solve it.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like my big sticking point is, your guys' applicant, it's good. I guess where I get hung up is just us, the town spending anywhere from $80,000 to $150,000 on parking spots for something that's probably not going to be, as Bill said, a town-wide benefit. Like, it'd be one thing if people could use it to park, go to a park, walk a trail, but I think it's strictly a business aspect. And I'm behind, like, I definitely support the applicant, but it's that parking thing that I'm hung up on.
Yeah, I fully understand. I just wanted to point out that it's not, we aren't parking any cars, so we're not going to be parking one car there ever.
No, that's understandable. I don't think we quarrel with that at all.
Yeah.
Just who should pay. Okay, let's bring this back.
And just
we have, Susan, go ahead.
no, just a procedural.
That is a public hearing, so we should make sure that if there's any members of the public that want to make comment, that opportunity happens here. And Susan, I assume you have that arranged as usual.
Yeah, that's correct. So this would be the time that we just make an announcement that anybody who's been watching and would like to make a public comment, they should text 970-987-7010 or email planning@basalt.net and give your name and phone number, and then we'll call you. What we've been doing then is once we make that announcement, I'd start the timer and we wait for 2 minutes to see if anyone calls us and indicates that they would like to speak. So I've started the clock.
Okay, well, let's, at this point, I will open the public hearing. Let the record show that it is 8:30, we got 8:39 p.m.
And we didn't have any public comment at the P&Z meeting either, just an inquiry the day of the meeting with someone who was an owner and just wanted clarification that there wasn't going to be residential.
We should also invite anybody that wants to call in and offer to purchase parking spaces, that we'd be open for that offer.
$7,500 a piece.
Got a cloud going right now.
Start a GoFundMe page.
Could James go over those 4 options again? I don't know if I just missed it.
Sure.
Where is there a page?
This sounds like fish named Wanda. I think there are 3.
Yeah. Oh, I thought there was 4. Sorry.
Well,
that's all right.
Are they in the packet on a page?
Yeah, they're.
You want mine?
They're in the packet.
Yeah, they're on page 160.
Oh, I got it now. Yeah.
Let me go back and share my screen here.
Yeah, there's 4 options, staff options. There's 4. There's 4, Bill Kane. Come on.
All right, man. Sorry.
There is 4.
Man.
My bad.
Unfortunately, the computer's frozen here, Ryan, but the first option was the applicant's proposal, which was the town to purchase the land and then pay for the construction of the parking spaces. The option number 2 was kind of a lease-to-own type of framework at basically half the cost of buying the land. Option 3 was what I described in terms of essentially paying for the land for the 6 new parking spaces, which would be about $21,000, and then the town paying for the construction, which was an additional $54,000, so that ends up about $75,000. And then the option number 4 is the applicant dedicating the right-of-way at no cost and constructing the parking at their cost, but then getting a rebate on building-related fees to offset some of the costs.
Hey, James,
Yeah.
in number 3, where it says that the applicant has expressed that they'd like us to pay for the future sidewalk at $16,000, I'm not doing the math because I don't know the actual square footage, but does that still work out to the like $27.92 per square foot, or is that a discounted rate as well?
No, that's based on the $27.92.
Okay.
But it's what we're offering, just so it's apples to apples, we're offering to take the number in half. Because based on the square footage of the sidewalk, it would be about 32,000 or what times 2. They give you like $33,000, and we just said we'll just cut it in half.
Yeah,
I'm not
James,
at dollar for dollar. I'm saying we'll cut it in half for you, just because it just seems fair.
just for clarification, the 16 grand already cut it in half.
Yeah,
That's
already in
correct.
half.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
And we didn't get any text or additional emails, so you, Mayor, you could close the public comment.
Thanks, Susan. So let the record show at 8:48 p.m. the public hearing is closed. So with that, I would ask that we consider a motion from council, and so this is, let's see where we are.
Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 13, series of 2020 on first reading and continue and set the public hearing, second reading for July 14, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion?
My only question would be, what parking option are we choosing? Or are we just waiting till the second option? Did I miss that?
We have to take second option.
What's that, Glenn?
I went with what you said, Bill. I was just approving the site plan and we'll research the parking option. Unless anybody wants to discuss that or change that, we can definitely do it.
Yeah, let me suggest, I think we approve the site plan and then suggest back to the applicant team that, and our own planning staff, to see if we can find a more equitable solution for paying for the parking that would involve some of the adjacent commercial owners, i.e. Big O and Basalt Quick Lube. You know, I think there's got to be a more equitable cost-sharing arrangement for all that. Otherwise, it looks like it's just a direct subsidy to the local businesses there.
So can I restate my motion?
And if I may, it's my understanding based on the discussion that there's still the intent to approve the ordinance on first reading with the direction that this town staff and the applicant explore additional options related to the dedication of the lot for right-of-way parking areas.
Well said, Jeff. Exactly right.
Do I need to restate that? Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I will ask to call the roll, Pam.
Absolutely. Let's begin with Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight,
Yes.
Bill Infante.
Yep.
Thank you, Bill. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We will continue this
Thank you.
discussion, I'm sure.
I'm gonna do the share screen and see if it works.
You're gonna do it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think
Did we lose you, Bill? Mayor?
Yes, sir. I am trying to figure out exactly where we are. We are on item 8E, which is...
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we're the next item is item 8E, resolution number 23, series of 2020. Resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving the Albany Park Pool Project initial phasing plan and directing town staff to request bids for construction. Susan Phil.
and Mayor, I will be recusing myself from this portion of the meeting. Perhaps Ryan can text me when we move on to the next item.
I'll do it, Elise.
Thank you.
Yep.
Susan, you are up.
Okay, and Giles Thornley is here from Connect One Design, and Giles, you have your microphone on. Are you going to join us with your video?
If you must.
Okay.
See my ugly mug.
All right. Well, as the resolution says, this resolution would approve the initial phasing plan for the Albany Park Pool, and it would also direct staff to request bids for construction. At the last meeting, Post was here. We had a work session on Albany Park Pool. Giles did a flyover of all the park improvements and summarized those, and summarized the phasing plan that we had for a 4-year period for the construction of the pool improvements. At that time, the council expressed a lot of appreciation for the work that Post and Connect One Design had done. The comments from the town council were along the lines of, is there any way that we can compress the phases or get more done up front? And we also expressed at that meeting that we were going to do a real quick survey using our Bang the Table software to kind of touch base with the residents and the citizens of the Basalt area about the pool project. So after that meeting, a couple things happened. We worked with Christy Hamrick in the finance department about the projected revenues for Post, and based on those discussions, we brought a lot of money back into the Post budget that previously, because of COVID, we had drastically cut the anticipated revenues down 50% in 2020. But based on the very favorable sales tax revenue that we had for the first part of the year and what we were seeing, we brought revenue back in, readjusted the Post dollars for the Albany Pool Project essentially to what they were in the adopted 2020 budget that the council adopted back in December. We also sent the survey out. We advertised it in the Aspen Times, the Aspen Daily News. We used the radio, we used the Spanish radio. We put posters at the pool, Linear Park, Triangle Park. We have kind of an email blast. Anybody that participated in the master plan got an email blast. We heard some feedback that a lot of those apparently went to spam, but Brian Pacente used, we lost, no, Brian's listening to our conversation too. Brian sent it out to all those folks that had registered to use the pool for 2020. And so we got a really good response from the folks that were using the pool. We got 58 responses using the Bang the Table software that we have. And we got 2 responses by email. One pointed out a glitch that we had in the system, that it wasn't allowing, if you didn't remember your password, wasn't allowing you to log back in, and we fixed that and made it a little more user-friendly. It indicated that if you didn't want to use and log in for some reason, that you could just answer these questions. We got one other email that was more refining on comments that they made in the survey itself. So I kind of wanted to just share my screen, if I can do that. So the first slide that we have here is just showing the park improvements that Giles walked you through at the first meeting. And what I kind of just wanted to share with you was that we got some really good feedback from the citizens. We put that in the packet that we emailed you last night. Most people were extremely excited about the pool improvements, really glad to see something was happening. You know, the first question just asked people what the favorite improvement was, and they said the shade and the robot pool. And you can kind of see energy efficiency getting high answers. What would most positively impact? Again, shade and the locker rooms and the robot pool were up there. Is there anything you don't support? You know, it was interesting about the hot tub. Maybe that deserves a little bit more discussion. We did a Bang the Table survey early on to kind of kickstart the project, and in that one, there was support for the hot tub. Tony did a survey of middle school. Let's see, she wasn't able to do the middle school. She did elementary school and the high school, and of course they all wanted a hot tub. This survey, we got a more mixed bag of folks that wanted a hot tub and folks that didn't want a hot tub. I just want to point out that very early on, the decision about the hot tub and not including it in the early phases was made, by the kind of town council direction on the climate initiative. And the green team's concern was mainly to try to make the existing pool a lot more efficient. So what we ended up in the plan was we showed a location for the hot tub, but we didn't include it in the 4-year phasing that we presented out to the public. The flyover that Giles said, give us your thoughts about the hot tub. We did not ask a specific question about it. And these were just more questions about what people think about phasing, et cetera. So, kind of some of the things that we learned by doing this quick survey. And this, I want to also say we weren't trying to get a vote of the community. We were trying to do a check-in to see were we on the right path. What we gave the community, what we presented to the town council, was an initial phasing plan, and we were asking them for the feedback. So lessons, what we learned, I think, from folks is that shade was a big, important desire of the community, and we did not have that in the first phase. The other kind of takeaway was that we were programming these two family-friendly ADA compliant restroom facilities, and they were going to take up the area that's currently used by the concessions. We did get a good number of folks that were concerned about losing the concession and going to vending, and so that influenced the phasing plan that we ended up coming up with. Another thing that came out of our survey was a concern about the turf. People, there were comments about people liking the grass, and there were people thinking that the turf was very messy. What we ended up doing was keeping the artificial turf, but still kind of identifying that we need to zero in exactly what that surface is around the robot pool where the kids are, and that we were going to, on the area that's currently grass, we were going to maybe make that a more robust lawn and do some landscaping. Jerry wanted to know about the schedule. We did provide that to him, but this is essentially kind of what you saw for at the last meeting. The big change really is the purchase of the shade sales. So we included the men's and women's locker renovations, but we did not, and that might be a discussion item for the town council, but we moved off the family-friendly restrooms to a later phase to keep the concession area, and we would do that in kind of the study of the pavilion. We would put new PV panels on the changing room roof. This is something really desired by Jerry Twilliger, who had commented earlier, purchasing this shade sales. The mechanical room upgrades, new efficient boiler and mechanical equipment, pool code compliance and safety upgrades. One of those has been made already. We did that ADA lift and the new water line. This is a water line that's, we're working on an easement with the school district. And then, let me see, I'll go to 2021. For some reason, our computers like to freeze in here, so I don't know what that's all about. 2021, this is the robot pool. It has shading too. This includes the ADA ramp into the shallow pool. The main pool, replaster, new furniture, new fence around the robot pool, and realign the path by the robot pool. And then this is the artificial turf by the robot pool, but we'd still be looking at other surfaces on that. Just a second, I moved too fast here. The Zoom thing's right in the middle of where I need to do my cursor here. 21 I did. 2022, this would be where we did the family-friendly restrooms. This is where we would demo the existing restrooms and rebuild the restrooms for Albany Park. This is the new pavilion slab, utilities and roof. This is move existing solar thermal to the pavilion roof, new fence on the north and east sides, complete the new pathway, new trees, turf, and irrigation within the pool area that I mentioned before. And 2023 is building out under the pavilion, and I didn't flip back and forth between the site plan, but remember about where the existing restrooms are for Albany Park. Just near there is this new pavilion, and we've been talking a lot of the options about what would happen in there. It could include, it definitely is supposed to include restrooms for Albany Park, may include concessions. When Giles showed you the slide last time, he showed the sport equipment, and moving the entrance is an option, but I have to say it's kind of moving more off the table. This is one that Tony has a big concern with, and Brian Pacenti from Basalt Recreation has been more scouring the existing codes, and there may be some reasons that we don't want to move the entrance because of those code issues. And then we may put additional solar thermal on the pavilion roof, and we might have a hot water storage tank, and that's really dependent on the results of the energy monitoring, purchase the remaining furniture, handicap parking by the pavilion. That's kind of an issue currently in that the handicap parking is so far away that it's difficult to get to the pool, so we wanted to have handicap parking over there by the pavilion. It was comments that were made in the first survey that we did. And I can circle back. This is just kind of the more details on the funding for 2020, which is, for the 2020, we're looking at the $625,000. And those items kind of lined up. We just organized this by the physical construction components, the professional fees to date, the unspent fees that are in the contract for the bid documents, the unspent design on the solar thermal that we're reallocating to the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and additional cost to prepare the bid documents, which I could go into, but basically, the short of it is kind of the scope of what we thought we were going to do really changed based on the input that we got from the public, kind of what was happening with COVID, and work with the post committee. This is the 2021 fees, just, kind of showing broadly how they're put together. This is 2022, and this is 2023. And this, again, is just the site plan so that you can see a little bit what we were designing. I think that the thing that maybe I want to emphasize is what the initial phase is really those items that we've identified to put in the bid documents are the items for 2020 and 2021. If you approve this resolution, then we would come back probably the first meeting in September with the bids that we've received and, kind of authorize construction. Some of this could happen in the late fall, like the interior restroom work with other activities like the replastering of the pool, et cetera, would happen in 2021. I did kind of want to mention, kind of circle back a little bit with Tony's concerns that she brought up in her email. One thing that she brought up, and we can go into a little bit more detail, you just ask us and we'll respond. But Giles did bring with him the pictures that kind of showed the flyover work that he had done and that we presented to the town council back in December. She was kind of pointing out some things about the charrette and activities like that. And I was only able to really read her comments real quickly before the meeting, and I wasn't able to kind of completely go back. But I think that the fundamental issue is really comes down to how much public input does the town want to have, and how are you going to use that public input in your decision making. It really kind of comes down to that. Tony points out that we had kind of a procedural bust in that we didn't post on the webpage. We announced at our post meeting that we were going to have a special meeting last Friday to review the survey results. So, Tony was aware of the meeting, but points out that we didn't put it on the website until Thursday night, and we had the meeting on Friday. She's also pointing out that kind of a concern about when we take public comment, and the town has had a long-standing kind of policy that during work sessions that we don't take public comment. So by way of example, the town council last time, we did the whole work session and we didn't have an opportunity for public comment. But there was an opportunity during the public input session during the town council meeting for the public comment. You know, we've always, the post committee's always allowed Tony to speak when she's come to a meeting. She's objecting to the location that we provide the public comment. We did respond to that at the last meeting and had her comment after the public presentation so she could have the comment. I would just point out that from the very beginning, when we scoped out this project, we did not include a really robust or intensive public participation effort. What we did in the RFP is we made a suggestion on how the public input could be, but it wasn't ever going to be robust. And then we said that the responders could respond with what they thought was appropriate. And what Connect One design kind of threw out there was starting to try to rely on our Let's Talk Basalt web-based program that we were trying to get off the ground. We paid for it as part of our master planning effort, and the goal is that a lot of communities use this kind of web-based thing to do kind of quick check-ins. You might have seen in the paper, Aspen did a quick one on the COVID and what streets and how were you going to close down parking spaces for the restaurants, et cetera. So it was kind of our desire to use that. Instead, we kind of really relied on the post committee. So I think that a lot of, in Tony's comments really have to do with the fact that we haven't set this out as a vote of the public on the improvements, and that we aren't, having a lot of, open houses, et cetera. Instead, that we've been kind of outlining with the first survey and the second survey. And so with that, if you guys have questions on that, I think Jeff Conklin, indicated to me that, the two ways of solving the procedural deficiency on the post meeting is either, we could continue it and allow the post committee to meet and do it that way, or you could take action and then ask the post committee to ratify the recommendation. Jeff might want to jump in on that. And I don't know, Giles, is there anything in my whole rundown, is there anything maybe you think that I should kind of highlight or anything?
No, you've done a good job.
Sure. Susan, I'll just follow up on your comments about the notice issue with the post meeting. The remedy for a notice deficiency is really just a redo. And here, post acts as a recommending body, but procedurally, I think that the town council has the ability to take action on this item, notwithstanding any recommendations of post. But nevertheless, they're charged with making recommendations. So I think there's two options here. The town council could continue their action on this resolution. Post could have a meeting between now and the next town council meeting, and then town council could take action at its next meeting, or I think town council could take action tonight with the condition that post ratify its recommendations that were made at its last meeting with the notice issue. But yeah, there could be action there could be action tonight with the condition that post ratify its recommendations at its next meeting.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions from council, discussion?
Jeff, are we legal?
I gave you your two options there. I think, again, there's the notice issue, you know, there was a few hours delay on the public notice for the post committee meeting. And so again, there's to cure that deficiency is to redo the post meeting. And I think that could be done either by continuing their town council's action on this item until post has an opportunity to meet and basically redo what they did at their last meeting, or to take action tonight on the condition that post affirm or ratify the recommendations that they made at their prior meeting. The more conservative approach would be the former, but I think either would be sufficient.
Thank you. What's the council's pleasure here? You've seen the recommendations, you've seen the phasing. I think, you know, the option of taking action subject to ratification by post seems to be the most expedient. I'm not sure time is of the essence here or not. So it just depends on council's comfort level. I'll just say personally, I'm fine with taking action and then asking post to ratify their previous recommendation subject to proper notice. So to cure that issue. So, but would love to hear from the balance of the council on this. Okay.
Mayor, resolution 23, series 2020 with ratification by post committee.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Sorry, David, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Just scratching my chin.
We have a second for that motion. Okay. Is there another motion?
Mayor, well, can we do the, Jeff, how would I word the motion of having post to revisit?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I said, how do I make the motion to have post revisit this, as you stated? Or should I just say as amended by Jeff?
Option one, you know, I outlined two options. Glenn made a motion kind of for option two, which has failed for lack of a second. So option one would be to move to continue this consideration of this resolution until the town council's July 14 meeting, with and for post to hold another meeting to make its recommendations to town council. And based on what I just said, you could just say so moved if you wish.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We will be continuing this item to the July 14th Bastille Day. Interesting. So this will be give post a chance to ratify their previous recommendation after proper notice. So been moved and second. I think we need to call the roll on this one.
Correct. You ready? Elise Hoddle?
Oh.
She's not there. She's a
Oh, that's
recused.
right. I'm sorry. She recused herself. I'm sorry. I didn't mark her off the list. Let's begin then with David Knight,
Yes.
Bill Infante,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
Bill Kane,
Yes.
and Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business is an ordinance of the council of the town of Basalt, Colorado, approving an amendment to the lease agreement with the Arts Campus at Willits, TACAW. Jeff.
The town owns the property where TACAW is proposed to be located in Willits. TACAW leases it from the town. The lease contains a legal description for the property based on the existing plat for that area. As part of some of the approvals for TACAW, there was a dedication of a portion of the right-of-way that or I guess a vacation of a portion of the right-of-way that's now included within what is the Takah parcel or the TPAC tract. And so there needs to be a corresponding amendment to the lease so that the legal description in the lease reflects what this parcel actually is. And this is coming to you now because, as Mayor Kane said in his announcement, that Takah's getting ready to move forward on construction of their facility there. So just a simple ordinance to amend that lease between Takah and the town to correct that legal description.
Great. Questions of Mr. Conklin? Discussion?
Mayor, I move.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 14 series of 2020 on first reading and set public hearing and second reading for July 14th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Okay. Let's shoot for Elise Hoddle this time, first up.
Wait, I don't even know what we're approving.
It's a modification to Takah's lease because there was abandoned right-of-way and the legal description has changed. So
Okay, yes.
there are no sort of ideological issues in play here. Okay,
Great,
thank you.
yes.
Thank you, Elise. Sorry to catch you so quickly after you rejoining the meeting. Glenn Drummond?
Yes.
Bill Infante?
Yes.
David Knight?
Yes.
Ryan Slack?
Yes.
And Bill Kane?
Yes,
Motion carries. Thank you.
thank you. Moves us on to resolution number 24, series of 2020, resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, adopting an amended public health order regarding face coverings. I'll just introduce it. Our requirement expires today, and I think the resolution calls for essentially an extension of our face covering ordinance to a date indefinite until it is actually rescinded by council. Is that correct? I'd like
This is Jeff, and I'm happy to introduce this a little bit more, and then I'll have Ron provide other comments. But the existing order for requiring face coverings is set to expire tonight. This would do a couple of things. One, it would extend it until revoked or the town's local emergency declaration is revoked. Then this would automatically terminate. Then there are a couple other changes, just kind of responding to current conditions and public health orders. So one of them was to add an exception to make clear that folks that are at a restaurant dining are not required to wear a face covering, except as required by the public health orders of the counties and the state regulations related to those restaurants. That's just to kind of sync up with that. Another exception for when it's not possible to wear a face covering in a gym setting. Some of our neighboring jurisdictions added this exception as well, along with the restaurant exception, just to their similar face covering requirements. And then the last exception was one to allow for some exceptions to pursuant to a special activity permit, such as our busker street performers. I think there's an expectation that there'll be appropriate social distancing, but if not, this would allow for them to not wear face coverings when performing, or if there's other event participants, that would also be an exception. And one other thing that was added was just a link or a note where for a link to how a face covering could be made, a link to the CDC website. And those were the changes. And Ryan, I don't know if you had anything else to add based on kind of where other communities are on their face covering.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that the communities up and down the valley that include Glenwood, Carbondale, Basalt, Aspen, Snowmass, all still currently have them in place. Pitkin County's current public health order requires face coverings as well. Eagle County's does not. It seems that conversations are becoming more frequent over there, but they're still holding out that, it's sort of split. We have said all along that the face coverings are but a tool in the toolbox to prevent the spread of coronavirus. We know that we're seeing more clusters come up, as we heard last evening amongst some youth. And, this is just a way when you cannot social distance to, add protection to the spread of the virus. One thing, Elise and I were bantering back and forth a little bit today, and I've put in my Friday report over the last several weeks the 5 commitments to containment. And those essentially are that you will practice social distancing, that you'll wear face coverings, you'll wash your hands frequently, you'll get tested immediately if you have symptoms, and lastly, that you'll stay home if you're sick. I think Elise and I sort of added a little twist onto that last one, which is also that you'll stay home if you know you've been exposed. I think that's what's leading to some of the clusters. There's little anecdotes that we hear of folks around town, and this is pretty serious. I know that we're all looking forward to getting some of our sort of daily back, but it's going to be very hard for that to happen and contain the disease if we don't kind of take that responsibility. This is something that we know some of our biggest retailers are really supportive of. It just kind of takes the question and the fight out of whether it needs to be worn or not. And at the end of the day, I think the idea is it's meant to be selfless. We're there and we're trying to protect our neighbor. So that's my additions. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Further discussion? Your motion?
Wait,
Mayor, I move.
Sorry, can I just, I am not in favor of the indefinite. I would rather, I don't think that this is such a huge, bear to wrestle with for us to review this monthly. And with the science still changing and things still being discovered, I would actually say, let's continue this out a month again and reconsider it. And I just think that those folks who already feel like it's infringing on their civil liberties are going to feel like, the municipality is overreaching its stance to say indefinitely you have to do this. My 2 cents.
Fair enough. So anyone want to make a motion and embed, go with the date uncertain, or do we want to continue us to a date certain?
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 24, series of 2020, and revisit the July 28th meeting. I'm pretty sure it's a meeting.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. We will review this again on July 28th. Is that right? Yeah.
That's what I got.
Okay, we'll just stipulate that date, July 28th.
Correct. It's a good date.
Okay. It's a valid date. It's actually on the calendar. That's good.
It's a valid council meeting date.
Okay, so been moved and seconded to extend our face covering ordinance with the provisos of the revised provisions as outlined by Councilor Conklin. All those in favor, well, let's call the roll.
Okay, let's begin. Glenn Drummond?
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight?
Yes.
Bill Kane?
Yes.
Bill Infante?
Yes.
Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We're making headway here. The next two are relatively painless. These are resolutions requiring to pass to receive money. So this is good work if you can get it. So at any rate, we're up to item 8H. This is resolution number 25, series of 2020. A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving a collaboration agreement with Eagle County regarding disbursement of coronavirus aid, relief, and Economic Security Act funds to county and local governments in Eagle County. Ryan and Kristen. So.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take these, and then Christy can fill in any gaps. So essentially, I'm going to just sort of speak broadly, and then we can get sort of into the detail of these agreements. Basically, the state got about $1.6 billion total through the CARES Act. And of course, there were some rules around that. The states withheld some of the money, and we're starting to see some grants come out for small businesses. Some of that money that was initially given actually didn't contemplate going to counties or municipalities with populations under 500,000. So sort of a swath of that got taken for those larger municipalities. And now it's coming down to those of us in the more rural areas of the state and with smaller populations. So there was about $275 million that gets split between counties, municipalities, and special districts that meet that smaller population criteria. These were distributed to the counties based on per capita distribution. And so at the end of the day, Pitkin County got $1.524 million, and Eagle County will get $4.699 million. And basically, the joys of living in two different counties, at the staff level with all of the town managers, sort of negotiated slightly different agreements. And so in Eagle County, the distribution is going to be based on actual expenses. And then in Pitkin County, the county will take a 55% share, and then the municipalities will split the remaining 45% based on a per capita distribution. So basically, at the end of the day, the town through Pitkin County will get $59,914, and from Eagle County, our share will be $222,467. And looking through, let's see, how am I going to do this? I want to screen share this with you all. Okay. So this is the collaboration agreement with Eagle County. I looked into the packet, and actually this somehow is not in here, so I want to make sure I get it on the record. But both of them are pretty much set up similarly, and Jeff has reviewed them. But you can see this one is basically between Avon, Basalt, Eagle, Gypsum, Minturn, Redcliffe, and Vale. So those are all the incorporated towns in Eagle County. So again, they're allocating up to this $275 million. So those are essentially the findings of fact. Distributed on a percentage of population. And as you can see here, this is where in Eagle County, it's based on this prorated actual eligible costs. And one slight difference here as well is the town, with regard to Eagle County's distribution, will have to go to the Department of Local Affairs and opt in by July 7th. And with Pitkin County, the county is going to do all of that and then just disperse out to the municipalities. So we will apply for those funds separately. And then here are a couple of the details of basically what we need to use those for, the funds, that to meet the requirements that they were necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency related to COVID-19, that we did not have them as budgeted expenses otherwise, so we can't do revenue replacement with these. It's essentially, we spent money that was unanticipated in relation to COVID. And then lastly, there's a time period. So between March 1st and December 30, all of the money would need to be spent. And then there's a reporting agreement here that will work with the county and report out our expenses by September 1st. And then if I go down to the bottom here, you can see the distribution and where we were. So Town of Basalt, this is where it gets to the prorated amount. So they took the total expenses and added them up, and they exceeded the amount that Eagle County would get. So they prorated it. The Town of Gypsum did refuse any money. Their town council decided not to take any. So then, to the spoils go the rest of us, and so that got distributed out again. And as you can see, the county here got the lion's share. They've also spent the largest amount, and the same goes for for Pitkin, where they had a very small public health staff, and they really had to ramp that up, and are now looking at hiring people to help with tracing and all of that. So that covers this Eagle County one, and so I'd suggest we go ahead and take a vote on that once we have council discussion. Or happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of Brian or comment, discussion on distribution of CARES funds from Eagle County? Hearing none, I'd appreciate a motion to approve resolution number 25 of 2020.
Mayor, Town Council adopt resolution number 25, series of 2020.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
All righty. Let's begin with Elise Huddle.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Kane,
Yes.
Bill Infante,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next one is resolution number 26 of 2020, resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving an intergovernmental agreement, IGA, for Coronavirus Relief Fund, local governmental distribution in Pitkin County. So
essentially, I believe we've looked at those. Looking for. Not seeing that. Hold on, bear with me for one moment. Okay. So this one is in your packet. If I get outsmarted by the screen here. Oh, here it is. So this says draft on it. I did verify with John Peacock that it was taken to the county commissioners on the 16th and was approved by them. So essentially, the change on this is that we will remove draft. But as you can see, they've got essentially their findings of fact on here that outline similarly what Eagle counties did on what the source of the money is, what it's to be used for, and that type of thing. And then down here in the agreement, you can see this split that the county would get the 55%, 45% would go to the municipalities, and we only have 976 people in the Pitkin County portion of town. And so, you know, that distribution ends up being about 4%. Here it talks about that we certify essentially that the amount is to cover the costs of those three criteria that I outlined previously, which are repeated here. And then the other stuff is essentially boilerplate, talking about the use, that, you know, there is accountability. We're going to need to report and be prepared for an audit of the expenses. And that if we don't spend the funds by December 30, they go back to the federal government. So I'm pretty sure we could safely say we'll find something for these funds, given the need in the community. This will expire about a year from now, and that's the entire agreement. And let's see if there was, move you guys over here on this. Yeah, those were, sorry, that was just the end of the booklet. So with that, similar situation, again, the distribution for Pitco was $59,914.
Okay. Questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve resolution number 26, series of 2020?
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 26, series of 2020.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Okay, absolutely. Glenn Drummond,
Yes.
Bill Infante,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Bill Kane,
Yes.
Elise Hoddle,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Town Manager, any further business tonight on your agenda?
I just have one more thing to share, and Christy, she just dropped off, but she needs to come back on. We'll see her face in a second. So I just wanted to embarrass her a little bit. She is going to be a bride on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So she will be taking a couple days off at the end of the week, and so just wanted to extend the congratulations and make sure you guys all heard it and just see her blush a little bit on the screen here.
Congratulations.
Hey, way to go, Chris.
Congratulations.
That's fantastic.
Really exciting. We've been together for over 5 years, so it's almost kind of as usual, but we're tying the knot. It's really exciting.
Great. So the town will provide a free copy of the audit. How's that for a lovely thing?
That's awesome.
Autograph.
Wow, see?
The generosity has no limits.
Yeah,
I feel like we should do his and hers match. Embroidered.
I did get those through Etsy.
That would be good.
So.
Well, thanks everybody. This was a long night, and but we got through a lot. So thank you everybody for hanging in. I think we came to some good conclusions, and so look forward to seeing everybody on the campus.
Thanks, Bill. Only 11 minutes over the allotted time. It's perfect.
Yay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Cheers. All the best.
Goodbye.